the higher, I'd get the highest one you can. It'll tell you, like,
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Glendale City Council Budget Workshop Session, April 4, 2024. Meeting is called to order. Roll call, not necessary. Everyone's here. If you take note of that, Ms. Bauer. And with that, we're going to go ahead and go right into item number 1.
Fiscal year 2024-25 Budget Workshop.
Good morning, Mayor, members of the council. Again, thank you for your time here today as we complete the department
Put on the
budget
agenda.
presentations. I think we're going to start with a recap of what we heard from the first day. Is that correct? And Levi, are you doing that? Okay, very good. Jonathan?
So, good morning, Mayor and Council. First up, we have the calendar, just an overview of what's to come. Today is the second budget presentation workshop, and then on the 16th, we'll meet again to bring the CIP and any discussions from today. Today's agenda are the follow-up items that Kevin mentioned. We'll review those on the next slide, and then followed by the department presentations. Here are the follow-up items we have for you today. The Sister City budget increase of $10,000 will be absorbed in the non-departmental budget. Internal charge increase that Councilmember Clark mentioned That was due to risk and compensations increase. The Civic Center revenue, FY23 actuals was $430,000, and year-to-date for FY24 is $177,000. And then we have a couple items that we will bring forward on the April 16th meeting, and those are the special events information, as well as the breakout of salary and benefits for general fund, and the breakout of non-contractual increases. So here's, on the right is our agenda for today, starting with intergovernmental programs and then finishing with water services. And then we'll move on with our first department presentation, and that's Mr. Lee with intergovernmental programs.
Great. Good morning, Mayor and council members. I'm here to present the FY25 budget for the Department of Intergovernmental Programs. Our budget this year is, this is for the first time our own budget. This is the first year that we have separated from communications and the Public Affairs Department. And so there have been very little changes to our budget. We remain at 3 FTEs. We do have a few supplementals that we have requested. The first is a contract increase for our state contract lobbyist for strategic. The next one is a $7,000 line item increase that funds a lot of the subscriptions and fees that we pay in intergovernmental programs as those prices have gone up. And then our travel expense, we have an increase request of $5,000 as we strive to assist the city council in their travel. And some of the travel expenses we've seen increase over the last few years due to inflation. So again, a modest increase here in our budget, and our FTEs remain the same, and I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Next, we have Sue Bredding with communications.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to be here today to tell you a little bit about the Communications Department. Very much like Ryan Lee, we are now a standalone department, and our budget stayed pretty much the same. We are not asking for any new additional staff over what we had this year. We're very pleased with the staff that we have, and we appreciate the members that we have. We're good with that, no more FTEs. We appreciate HR and their support in getting us for our vacancies the very best and the brightest. We added 3 new team members who are doing really well, needed very little training or anything. They are up to speed, and we are doing great. So thank you for that. You can take a look at our pie chart. It's very similar to what we had before, and nothing to really point out there. Taking a look at the next goals and objectives, they are also very much the same. We're on track. We're even moving ahead in some areas. So a few of our accomplishments that I wanted to point out, you have several pages of it, but I wanted to highlight a few. We implemented numerous efficiencies this year, which we were able to do because we're now a standalone department. We were able to take a look at, we have a new system for submittal of work requests, a detailed best practice documents for the video production team. We now have a comprehensive inventory spreadsheet, an at-a-glance listing for our warranty and service agreements information. We embarked on a comprehensive evaluation of all communications that are going out to residents to ensure that they really best serve the audience, that they're following brand guidelines, and this ranges from the satellite social media accounts all the way to various newsletters. We're taking a look at the water bill insert and so forth. So we're doing all of that research. Some of the highlights of our accomplishments too include we effectively communicated information for the 2023 bond measures to voters. This includes a lot of different work, us carrying our equipment to different locations for live reports, to creating a special website, landing page, and 100 different graphic design pieces. We partnered closely with Desert Diamond Arena to help them plan their press event celebrating their 20th anniversary, contributing to their success. They did not have the skill of knowing much about media relations, so we stepped in and partnered with them and made that successful. We also handle events for the cities, everything from the landfill opening. We are planning a ribbon cutting for the courts. We are also event planners, and we're really good at that, so a lot of that is behind the scenes work that we do that we're really proud of. Just a few video wins this year. We had 13 short videos in the Have You Been Here series that really effectively showcased Glendale hotspots in a fun way. They did really well on social media. They won multiple industry awards, so that was really fun. Our social media is doing very well, as we would expect. We continue to keep up with the website. We have done numerous Final Four communications, everything from 2 very long-form videos to starting Friday. You're going to see some short, snappy videos every single day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, recapping all the excitement of what is going on in the greater sports and entertainment district. We have 3 videographers out shooting all of that all day, and 1 individual who edits overnight and has a short video ready to go the next morning. So we did that in Super Bowl. We are enhancing it this year, so we do things like that. We were honored with an absolute record number of regional and national industry awards, including in some areas that we just didn't even know about, and industries came to us and they said, did you know about these public relations awards? You do work very much like advertising. We entered work based on that, and we ended up winning. So basically, we feel like we are inspiring others in some of the work that we do, and we also are, that shows that we are meeting best practices in the communications industry. We handled more than 200 incoming media requests. We are proactively all the time sending out press releases and pitches. Those are just a few highlights of this amazing team. While I might be the idea person and the standard of excellence person, we have such a great team that I am very, very proud of. And we continue to do good work, and we have only just begun. Let's take a look at our supplemental requests. We are not asking for more FTEs, and we actually are not asking for any new items. These items that you see here, Archive Social Archiving Service, the Connection newsletter, and equipment maintenance, all of those just simply reflect inflation and the costs of just equipment is expensive. We are taking equipment around different places. When that breaks, it can be expensive. We are always, always, always looking for the newest of things and how people are communicating, and so making sure that all of that is warranted, that it has good service agreements. We're doing that. We're asking for those amounts just to help us keep up. Now, I know that Councilmember Clark had mentioned something about a podcast supplemental. That is something that we are looking into, and that is something that we are going to be doing. When we roll it out, it's going to be right and it's going to be good, and we're going to work with experts and make sure we don't just run into our studios and use our mics and throw out a podcast. It will be, we would like time to research that, make sure that we know exactly the cost of, you know, what the streaming for different services will be, what exact equipment we need, who we need to consult with to be able to say, here's some tips and here's how you can make it good. So we planned to just absorb that within our budget. We're comfortable with our budget. We appreciate everything that you do. We're frugal with our money up until the very end, and then there are some wish list items that I take a look at toward the end of the budget. And I think we're on track, and I think we're doing well, and that is one that I actually think that we can absorb. But I'm happy to take your question, any question.
And she has one for you.
I see that. Good morning.
Microphone. Microphone. That's right.
Is it on?
Now it is.
Okay. To follow up on the podcast topic that you related, if you had to do further research and find out the cost of streaming services, how did you come up with a budgetary request for $6,000 if you hadn't done the research?
Well, we had done some initial research, and that included also consulting with experts and not knowing and looking at some. So we had done some initial research, but we want to dig more into that, and we haven't had time to really do yet what we wanted to do.
Do you anticipate getting some podcasts up and running during this coming fiscal year?
Yes, with the budget money that we have, we can absorb it.
Okay, thank
based
you.
on what we looked at. If we need more, we will come back to you next year and we'll say, you know what, this is more than we think it will be to get us up and running and to consult with experts and really research this, and we'll come back to you next year and we'll ask for it. But I think we're fine this
Okay.
year.
Well, then I expect to see some podcasts sometime this coming year. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me.
Good
Ms.
morning.
Redding, I just want to take a moment to compliment you and your department on really a stellar year on getting out the good news about Glendale. I'll leave it at that because anything more would just dilute what a terrific job you've done this year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Turner.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Brenning, I'm just out of curiosity, what is Archive Social Media Archiving Service? What is that?
Sure, thank you for asking. That keeps us up, that keeps us on track with public records requests. That is a professional service that is able, with our record keeping and with what is needed for the clerk's office, they professionally make sure that we are on track with keeping a detailed look at what it is that we need to have to record everything for the city.
So I just was curious. So we get public records requests for stuff on our
Or
social
with
media?
our public records, with our public records.
Okay, interesting.
Yes,
I
with
didn't
the
know that
clerk's
happened.
office.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Next, we have Jean Moreno with Community Services.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Good morning, Mayor and Council. I am very excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the things that are happening in community services and our fiscal year 25 budget requests. Before I get started, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge my leadership team, many of whom are here today in the audience. This team of individuals leads other managers and supervisors and teams of people within our department to really get a lot of things done for our community. So I wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't here saying thank you for all of the work that they do. But additionally, one of the things that I just would like to point out is to all of my colleagues in other departments here in the audience today as well, the work that we do in community services isn't possible without the support of all of the other departments. So we don't get to save people from homelessness or support affordable housing or deliver early education programs in our library facilities without the support of all of the other departments. And so as I'm presenting today, I hope that everyone will see how their work is a part of the work that we do delivering services for our residents. There we go. All right, so community services. We are 5 divisions, 110 regular status FTEs. We average about 120 employees when you include temporary staff. You can see our purpose statements here. The one that I'll point out is our vision statement. We really do strive to ensure that we're the national model for innovative community services. That is really the driving force for all of the decisions that we make and the programs that we deliver. But what do we really do? So someone that I admire once told me, you know, community services is like the quality of life department. And the more I thought about that, the more I thought, you know, they're right, because the services that we provide are really designed to support our residents through every stage of their life, from early childhood development all the way through helping support families who are dealing with dementia. and everything in between. And so what we do is we deliver programs and services. We have about 55 unique programs and services that we deliver to our residents here in our community. Our reach is about 5,000 households annually in human services, about 5,400 touch points in what we refer to as sort of community vitality programs. So it's our volunteer programs, our adoptive families, our backpack drives, our HOA clinics, and those types of things. And then about 2 million touch points with our library patrons, with from everything from checking out books to using our computers to participating in programs. So this is our fiscal year 25 proposed operating budget. It's about $52 million. You can see here that 69% of that budget is in the operating category. And what that actually means is that's service delivery to our residents. And the balance of that is the staffing for those programs and services. What's not shown on this slide is that about 79% of our overall budget is grant funded, and the balance being general funded. So I'm not going to go over all of these performance measures. As many other departments have mentioned, we are in that transition phase where we had previously been reporting a lot of outputs. We're transitioning to key performance indicators that focus on outcomes. So you'll see some change over time, but these are traditionally the performance measures that we have presented. We are transitioning to things, they weren't quite ready for prime time for the budget presentation, but we're really looking at more qualitative measures like how people feel about our services, our net promoter score, and then percent increases in things like obtaining additional grant funding, increasing our volunteer service hours, and those types of things. I would like to point out on this next slide here, one of our more qualitative things that we've looked at is the percent increase in community volunteer hours. We have some very robust community volunteer programs both in our libraries and in our community engagement division. And we are estimating a 28% increase in volunteer hours this year. Last year, Councilmember Clark asked me a question about the value of our volunteer service. And so we, on average, have about 27,000 volunteer hours a year. And when you calculate that out, it's about almost $1 million, $866,000 of value that our volunteers bring to our community. And that is just amazing to me and very impactful. And our volunteers are very, very engaged. They love our community. It's a great way to get to know us and what we do. And we value them and what they bring to our community immensely. So the next slide here talks about some new programs and services that we implemented this year, many of which you already know about. A couple that I'd like to point out though, so our Thrive Success Coaching Program, that was something that was fully implemented this year, thanks to support from council over the prior years. We have 90 enrollees in that program, and essentially what we do is we provide supportive services to low-income families who have experienced a crisis, or are participating in our housing programs. And the services that we provide are really designed to help improve long-term fiscal or financial sustainability for those families, or to help graduate from our programs. So very proud of the work that's being done there. Additionally, the other one I'd like to point out is our Landscape Improvement Pilot Program that launched this year thanks to the support of council, and I'll talk a little bit more about it later. So we launched that last month, and we are on track to serve 100 households this year, and we're asking for some continuation for next year as well. One that's not on here that I failed to put on here is we also received a grant from one of our partners for a diaper distribution program, and that program distributed 135,000 diapers to low-income families who needed that additional support. Diapers are very expensive, and this was a great way to offer them support, but then also get them into other services and programs. And then lastly, I'd like to point out that our housing authority, Glendale Housing Authority, has been designated as a high-performing agency by HUD, which is the highest standard that you can receive in that category. And then our department was actually recognized as Arizona Housing Coalition's 2024 Advocate of the Year in February, and we're very proud of that as well. That being said, I think the essence of what we do is honestly best described by the people we serve. And so I have a few testimonials here that I'd like to read to you if you'll indulge me. This first one is from one of our clients who is participating in our Thrive Success Coaching Program. And she said, I went to an interview today at a place literally 2 miles from my house, making more money, and guess what? They called me to offer me the position. I'm so excited. And then tonight, I get my certificate for financial literacy program. Everything is going so well. I'm so happy. You have no idea the feeling for me. In our library, we have an 8-week program that's called Learn, Play, Grow. We recently heard from one of our parents that, the program was coming to an end, and some of the grown-ups got together and said, hey, let's get together after this program ends and keep, bringing our kids together. And they did that all on their own because of a program that we put together in our libraries. It builds community, it develops friendships. But the best part is that parent told us that the growth that they've seen in their child in terms of their social skills and development has been tremendous throughout this program. This next one is from Phoenix Rescue about their experience working with our Glendale Housing Authority. My clients, Daniel and Diane, experienced homelessness for many years. They became clients at Phoenix Rescue Mission through our street outreach services. Daniel told me about the many previous promises of housing that never came and was skeptical. When I set up their appointment with the Glendale Housing Authority, I was amazed at what followed. When we completed their briefing, obtained their voucher, and got them approved for an apartment in 5 hours. The apartment was inspected in record-breaking time, and Daniel and Diane signed their lease 2 days later. Working with Daniel and Diane has been a blessing, and their overall gratitude and gratefulness truly reminded me of how special the work is that we get to do. This next one was from one of our residents who participated in the landscape improvement program. When Channel 11 interviewed him, he got a little emotional when he talked about what the program meant to him. He said, I received violations because of having a dirt yard, but the cost of rock was astronomical, and I couldn't afford it. He said, this program has been a godsend and has relieved a lot of pressure, and now it's one less thing that this gentleman has to worry about. And then this next one is from a participant at one of our heat relief respite centers from last summer. This place is a blessing for me. It keeps me cool for one, I get a meal, and I enjoy people, the really good people here. And this last one, so we have a campaign going on right now for National Library Week. It's a month-long campaign to really invite members of the community to tell us about the impact that Glendale libraries have had on their lives. When I lived with my father in Phoenix, my mom arranged special days to spend time with me. Once a week, my mom had a day off and we'd go on our Thursday adventures. Mom wasn't exactly rich and couldn't take me to, say, Castles and Coasters on our Thursdays. My mom was a smart woman and knows how to use her resources, so she turned to the library for about 6 months every week, she'd take me all around Arizona using the Glendale Culture Passes. Thursday adventures were my escape. The story goes on to explain that she continued to experience challenges in her life and had dropped out of school until eventually she became a library volunteer and then decided to go back to school to become a librarian. She says, today, I let the library motivate me to keep working, to not give up, to give to the community the way so much was given to me. The Glendale Public Library saved my life, and I couldn't be happier to be a volunteer. I hope that one day I can be a part of that, saving other lives. I share these stories with all of you and members of the public and all of my colleagues because this work doesn't happen without us together as a team, and I am so proud of this work that everybody participates in. So with that, I would like to talk about what we need in community services to help continue doing that great work. So last year, probably May, June timeframe, I had the opportunity, I made it a point to go out and meet with every single employee in my department one-on-one in getting to know you meetings. And those meetings were really designed to learn more about people, their desires, their aspirations, what they liked, what they didn't like. The one thing that I learned, it was emphatic amongst every single employee I talked about. They love their job, they love the team that they work with, and they love serving the public. And that was super reassuring to me because if you don't like your job or the people you work with, there's not a lot I can do about that. But the other things I can. And so one of the things that came out of those meetings was the need for career development, staff training, and support to really create growth opportunities within our department. So you'll see that theme in these requests that I have today, with the exception of a couple of operational things. So the focus here, and we've been doing a lot of work over the last year, one of our Tier 2 strategic initiatives is around succession planning and making sure that we are creating development opportunities for our staff, and that we're looking at opportunities or situations where we have like all of our eggs in one basket, like only one person does this work, and seeing how can we create a team of people around that body of work. And so that is what's reflected in my budget supplementals today. So this first one is an operational, it's again, another one-time request for the continuation of our residential landscape improvement pilot program. This will allow us to serve 200 families altogether, or 200 households altogether. We see the value of this program is very significant. $125,000 to serve 100 households is a really, really good investment from our perspective. I'm going to take these a little bit out of order. So there's two positions up there related to director or deputy directors. So one is to reclassify an existing assistant director position. It's never been filled. I did have a couple of failed recruitments. And so as part of our analysis of our department and understanding where our gaps are, but then also focusing on career development and how do we really make sure that we can continue to do this good work, but not have gaps if somebody leaves. I am recommending a restructure in the department so that we have a deputy structure similar to what many other departments have. So I have 2 deputies to help with this massive body of work that we are responsible for. And so that's those 2 positions there. The new FTE, Human Services Coordinator, as you know, the city is the recipient of opioid settlement funds. Much of that work I have been collaborating, and it's been led by the city manager's office, Mr. St. John. And so in discussions in how do we continue that work after our public health fellow is no longer available to us from Maricopa County, what we've decided to do is invest in another human services coordinator position. We currently have 1 in our department that's responsible for homeless services. That's the only position that we have. And so by adding this other position and adding the additional body of work, so homeless services as well as substance use disorder programs, this creates that team that I kind of talked about. So we have continuity of service and we don't have gaps in our service delivery. And then the last one on this slide here is, as you know, we will be moving into the system of care facility within a few months, and this is just the annual ongoing that I had previously talked about with council related to the utilities. On this next slide here, you're fairly familiar with some of these programs. Every year we do a carryover of grant funds that are unexpended that we just need to carry over into the next fiscal year. These are all grant programs, and so pretty standard. And then this last one is related to our public housing programs. So as you know, one of the things that I've talked a lot about is reducing poverty and increasing graduation rates from our programs. What we'd really like to do is make sure that we're providing the supportive care and services for families and households like the one that I meant, the testimony that I shared earlier, to help them in terms of getting better jobs, getting education, increasing their living wage so that they can graduate from our programs. And so these FTE requests here are reflective of that goal and that mission. And so essentially what this does is this will increase the number of staff that we have that work directly with households. Currently, we have 6 community services representatives responsible for serving about 1,500 households, so it's a pretty large caseload. So these additional FTEs will help reduce that caseload so that our caseworkers can spend more time with our households, get them into our success coaching programs. And then obviously, you know, we need additional supervisors. And then we also looked at another area where we have all of our eggs in one basket, so to speak, in our inspections. So in public housing, we are required to do annual inspections for all of our units. We only have 1 person who's assigned to do that work. So this additional FTE will be a working supervisor position that will also do inspections, so we have a gap, but then they'll also take on the overall management of our actual public housing facilities. And so with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to go back to slide 34, your key accomplishments, because I don't understand what a lot of them are. I believe last year we had 2 or 3 heat respite centers. Is that correct?
Mayor and Councilmember Clark, last year was the first year that we operated respite centers, and yes, there were 3.
Okay. Seemed to me, I can't remember the exact figure, but the cost to run one heat center was over $100,000. Why is that particular program so expensive?
Mayor and Councilmember Clark, so a couple of reasons why it is kind of costly to run. We do try to obviously minimize costs by working in partnership with the Arizona Faith Network, who leverages the churches in our community. But utilities, obviously, for those facilities over the summer are very expensive. And then bringing in the temporary staff and making sure that they're appropriately compensated and trained is also important. The other part of it, too, is it's a 6-day-a-week operation, 12 to 8. You have to have some skilled staff there. And then lastly, it's you're providing snacks, you're providing water. And just as a reminder, those programs were grant funded through Maricopa County. And the council also recently approved an IGA to continue those programs this year. This year we'll only be operating 2 centers.
So it will remain grant funded and not at an expense of the city?
Mayor and Councilmember Clark, that's correct.
Okay. Thrive Success Coaching, 90 enrollees. What is Thrive?
Mayor and Councilmember Clark, THRIVE stands for Transcending Hope and Resiliency through Impactful and Viable Empowerment. And so
That's great, but
I know,
no one would
I'm
know
getting there.
what it is.
So this is a program where we have 6 employees, and they work with our clients both in our public housing programs, clients that have previously been homeless but have been rehoused, and then clients that have experienced a temporary financial crisis. And what they do is they work with those households to establish individual unique goals. So we might have an individual that comes to us and they're in a very low paying job and they need to get a better paying job. So these success coaches work with those clients to help them with resume development, getting them connected to workforce connections, getting them support for job interviews and those types of things. They also really focus a lot on financial literacy. And then also credit. So we have a partnership with a nonprofit who helps provide credit counseling and financial literacy programming. The idea here is to help increase livable wages, help improve that financial literacy so people are spending their money wisely, saving wisely, and those types of things so that they don't have to continue to come back to our programs, and so that we can also help them graduate from our housing programs.
Okay. Next one. Library services, 250 recommendations. What does that mean?
So in our library programs, you'll recall about 18 months ago, we did a community needs assessment and a process improvement team. And so from that information, we had a list of over 250 recommendations from various things, from making capital changes to the facilities to operational changes. So we're tracking over 250 recommendations. Many of them are associated to the capital needs for those buildings, and so we are tracking those to make sure that as our capital program moves forward, that we're trying to address as many of those as possible. A majority of them, however, were things that we can do operationally. And so we are working through that list. We have about 30% of the operational things either done or completed. And then it's really about continuous improvement. But that was based on the feedback that we got from the community, from our library advisory board, from many of you who participated in interviews with the consultant, as well as the process improvement team.
So, cutting through the chase, have any of those 250 been implemented at this point?
Oh yes, about 30% have been implemented.
Okay. Who's the current library director?
Mayor and Councilmember Clark, our interim library chief librarian is Dawn Farrow. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today. She's at a conference.
Okay. Just needed to know that informationally. And what are non-entitlement grants for the public?
Mayor and Councilmember Clark, so all of our HUD programs, so our housing programs, CDBG, ESG, and all of that, that's what we refer to as entitlement. So basically, those monies come to us automatically from HUD. And so that's what we refer to as entitlement grants. One of our strategic initiatives for our Tier 2 is to increase flexible funding sources. And so what that means for us is that we need to go after additional grants and be competitive for additional grants. So our objective is to bring in a certain percentage of non-entitlement grants. So here you can see that we sought and received $14 million in new grants that were non-entitlement, and all of that funding goes to support the programs and services that I've talked about today.
If I could continue, Mayor, thank you. One comment and one ask. Excuse me. I want to, excuse me, I want to commend you. You are a very strong advocate for those in need. And anyone who deals with you recognizes that immediately. I think you're in the perfect position, and I hope you'll remain in it for a very long time, because you're doing an excellent job. And I know your passion is with those in need. Don't forget the library. The library and its services are just as important to residents who are not in need as well. Then I have one ask for council. Last year, you all generously gave to the Glendale Women's Club initiative called the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. This year, I am asking that we provide a line item under community services for $10,000 to provide some kind of financial commitment to this ongoing program. And let me tell people a little bit about what this program is. This program mails a book a month to children who are under 5 years old. So once a month they get a book up until the age 5. Then when they turn 5, their last book is called Off to Kindergarten I Go. So it's perfect. The cost of it, and this is, the Glendale Women's Club only supports Glendale children at a cost of $26 per child for 1 year of 12 books that are mailed monthly. Last year in 2023, the Glendale Women's Club was able to accommodate 9,930 children, which is kind of phenomenal. So I'm asking for council consensus to consider a line item of $10,000 to be earmarked for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library Program. And we couldn't be supporting a better institution, which is the Glendale Women's Club, which has been around for 100 years. And they're doing good things for the community, and I think it would be admirable of us to show our support for their support of this particular program. So, Mayor, I am going to ask for consensus for that line item of $10,000.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm done.
Mr. Milner.
Thank you. Again, I'd like to echo Councilmember Clark's compliments. I don't need to say anything else. I think that she said it very well. I had just one question. If you could go into a little more detail of the residential landscape improvement pilot program, what the qualifications for that would be, and as you know, several council members have done that kind of a program, and I'd like to kind of know what the qualifications would be for an individual to be able to participate in that program.
Mayor and Councilmember Melnar, so this is an initial pilot program. We've partnered with Rebuilding Together to help in terms of leveraging the full capacity of that $125,000. If we were to go out and do that on our own, we don't think we would have the reach of 100 households. So in our discussions with them, essentially what we do is we identify the neighborhoods based on our data. So we look at our code compliance data, overlay that with our low-income areas of our community and some crime data to really identify, okay, where are the hot spots that are the most blighted, that need the most assistance? So then after we identify those areas, Rebuilding Together goes out and they basically do a door-to-door campaign and knock on doors and say, hey, we noticed XYZ, we have a program, are you willing and interested? And so that's how neighborhoods are identified. We don't, because of how we're doing it with a focus on blighted areas and low-income areas, in consultation with the attorney's office and making sure that we had a way to administer the program that sort of eliminated as much red tape as we could. We don't do individual household income qualifications, but because it is in an identified depressed area, that's how those neighborhoods are selected and identified. We expect, the other part of it too, in the design of the program is we wanted to make sure that we were creating maximum impact, maximum visual impact in a neighborhood, because we know that blight can attract other undesirable types of activities. And so as a result of that, we expect to see some significant neighborhood improvements in those areas. Some of those areas also overlap with focus areas of the police department as well. As a matter of fact, with our first event that we conducted, PD was very involved and supportive of the work that was being done because they are also working in that community as well.
Just to answer, I guess you answered my question, so you've already implemented the program and have had some success.
Mayor and Councilmember Renalo, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Tom Shaw. Oh, I thought you, okay. Anyone else? All right, a couple things. Gene, I think you already know how I feel about how you run your department. I know you're like a lot of folks that you give all the credit to your staff. But good leadership has good staff, and you certainly have proved yourself. One of the things that I'm a little concerned with, if you could go back to that slide that you just had a minute ago, where they were talking about the heat relief, right there, 12,000 visits for heat relief, and that's only in 3 months or 4 months in the summer, is that correct?
Mayor, the heat relief program typically runs May 1st through at least the end of September. This last year, we ran it through the first 2 weeks of October because of the extreme heat. So it's a little bit more than 3 months.
Okay, more than 5 months, basically. Still a lot of visits. And the city pays nothing for that? That's all through grants, is that correct?
Mayor, last year's program was completely grant funded. This year's program, we are supplementing with some of our temporary staff and then also some case management. So, but a majority of it is grant funded, yeah. Well, all of it's actually grant funded through the other case management.
Okay, and then the cost of doing the heat relief for both stations, approximate cost?
Mayor, the last year's program the grant was $771,000, I believe. I'll have to follow up with you and get you the exact numbers. And then this year's IGA was for about $400,000.
So it's less than last year?
Mayor, yes, because we're only operating 2 centers this year.
Okay, all right. So something, I don't know if people really understand how critical these stations are. We had over 600 deaths last year in Maricopa County from heat. 600 deaths. If you think about that and put that in comparison to accidents or drownings or anything else, if those numbers were that high, people would just go out of their minds. We don't have 600 drownings in Maricopa County during the summer. Thank God for that. But to me, it's just as critically important that we try to do more. I'd really like to see more money put into that program and have a third station. I can't think of a worse way to die. I just can't. How horrible that would be. I don't know what the cost would have to be, but if it was $200,000 more than what you currently have, if that would help get you that third station. I'd have to rely on your department to tell us, but that's the one thing I don't see how we skimp on that. These are people's lives, and the best thing that could happen is we have a mild summer, but I think we have to be prepared. So again, I don't even know what to propose for additional, but I'd like to see a third station. I think that's critically important.
Mayor, if I may, there is absolutely no doubt that these centers save lives. We know that for sure. I think the challenge that we have is it's a temporary operation, so it's very difficult to find locations that we can stand up for a temporary operation. We're very thankful for our partners at Arizona Faith Network, but they honestly struggled to secure the locations that we had last year. And the two that we do have are continuing this year. We could certainly go back to them and see if it's possible for them to secure a third location and identify what that might look like. My concern, honestly, is that we're in the beginning of April, and getting those centers and stations up and running very quickly it's a heavy lift and a hard challenge. But we could certainly ask them if it's possible, and then we can, bring that information back to Budget and Finance.
Okay, one of the things that I had done is I'm trying to read these notes at the same time. I was trying to find out something to compare where people actually get a good idea in their head how severe this problem is. When I had asked how many fatal accidents, car accidents, I just got word back there were 613. There were more deaths by heat-related than by car accidents. And look at the billions of dollars been spent on seat belts and airbags and signs and roads and all of that. And yet, here's something very simple that if there's a way, I really think that we need to come after that. Yes.
Mayor, thank you, Mayor. Are you saying there's 600 heat-related deaths in Glendale?
Maricopa County.
Oh, okay. And there's only 600 deaths from car accidents in Maricopa County?
613 is what they just sent me.
In all of Maricopa County? It seems like more than that. Okay. I'm sorry I was distracted when you called on me. I'm trying to get a legislative alert out to my residents this morning, so wanted to make sure that went out early enough. I just want to say thank you, Jean. I just don't really know what else to say, but thank you. Thank you to you and your staff. You guys, you embrace a difficult job because you hear stories, I'm sure, every day that are heartbreaking. And I know, you do your best to help every single person that contacts you or your staff. So I just want you to know how much I appreciate how hard you work and how much you embrace what you're doing. And just the only thing I can think of to say is thank you. I know that we all appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Ms. Amy Lindsay, who will be presenting the Budget and Finance presentation as well as a non-departmental presentation.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm pleased to be presenting the fiscal year 25 budget ask for the Budget and Finance Department as well as the non-departmental department. The Budget and Finance Department has a budget of approximately $12.7 million and 76.5 FTEs. 75% of our budget is salary related. The rest is operating, which is 2.3 million or 18%, and then we have 7% for internal charges. A few of the performance measures, I don't want to go through each one of these in the interest of time, but one that I wanted to point out on this slide is the bond rating. It's the second item down. We were upgraded from AA to AA+ by Fitch for water and sewer revenue bonds this past January. On this slide, I'll bring to attention the last two items that are on here. We received the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report and the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the Annual Budget Book for the 36th consecutive year. This last slide of our performance measures, I'd like to bring attention to the percentage of call center calls answered within 1 minute increased from 54% to 80%, with an annual target of 90% for fiscal year 25, and the calls abandoned decreased from 11% to less than 2.5%. some of our accomplishments from this past year, again, I already mentioned the the GFOA award for the budget book as well as the ACFR. The From the Heart program began in 1996, and to date, over $3 million has been distributed to local nonprofit agencies from citizen donations through Glendale's utility billing to fulfill community needs. In fiscal year 2023, $67,200 was distributed to 14 different agencies. We moved operations from City Hall to the Civic Center Annex and Adult Center without any service interruption to both external customers and the departments. And this past year, we hosted the Pacific Regional Annual North Star Users Conference at the Gripstick. And for our fiscal year 25 supplemental requests, I will turn the presentation over to Mr. Gibson.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. We have 2 requests this year. The first is a new payroll specialist to help process payroll within the city. We currently have 2 payroll specialists. As the city has continued to grow, we find the need for an additional one. Additionally, the city is implementing a new timekeeping system that will help the departments track their time, but it brings along some additional requirements on the payroll staff, so we find the need to add an additional person within our payroll to ensure that we continue to pay our employees correctly and timely every 2 weeks. The second ask is for another senior accountant position. Senior accountants are very instrumental in providing information to departments as well as to outside entities. Currently, governmental accounting standards are set by the GASB, which is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, and they continue to add additional standards to our workload that require very detailed work, and it's very time consuming. This year we implemented GASB 87, which was a new lease standard, as well as GASB 96, which is the subscription-based IT arrangements, or SPITAs, and those required staff to analyze hundreds and hundreds of agreements to make sure that we accounted for them correctly, and we just find that we need additional help in order to meet our reporting deadlines. So those are our asks for budget and finance.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have 2 questions. One's related to page 117 in the budget book under your accounting services. And I noticed it wasn't just necessarily within your department, but in several others. There's a line item called technology expense under services and supplies, and it's zeroed out. It's not a lot of money. We're not talking about a lot of money, $17,500. But what was it used for, and why is it no longer needed?
Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Clark, I believe that was a one-time supplemental for a subscription-based technology arrangement that we had this past year, but I would have to
It's not a
confirm that.
one-time supplemental. It was in the 23 budget for $13,480, and then in 2024 it was $17,500, and in 2025 it's being zeroed out. So it's not a supplemental, and if you don't have the answer now, I would appreciate it if you would provide it at some point.
Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Clark, I just received some information. We moved that to another line item within the division. So it's still in there, it's just in a different line.
What
Mayor.
line is it in now?
Mayor, members of the council, if you look at the line right above it, it goes up by $17,500, the exact same dollar amount. So it moved from technology to professional
So the line
services.
above it is professional services,
Correct.
and it's in there now?
Correct.
I see, increase of 17.5. You guys are smart. Okay, second question has to do with collections. Your budget for collections is $554,525. I'm always curious, are you collecting enough revenue to offset the cost of services provided in this department? Boy, that microphone's waving around between all different people.
Mayor, Councilmember Clark, yes, our collections department collects more than the cost that they incur to the city. Our collections office does a fantastic job in collecting from citizens on delinquent water, sewer, trash, as well as they work with our tax auditors to collect and work with the tax auditors on the audits that are done and to collect back taxes from business that do business within Glendale. So they do collect more than that. They also participate in a number of programs to help with that. One is the debt offset program through DOR, where they'll work to go and intercept tax refunds. So this time of year is very active for them as they work those programs.
My last question is partly comment. Ever since we had to use Maricopa County for taxes, it's been expensive for the city to do so. And I've never been very happy about that, but there's nothing I can do about it. Now I see we're incorporating a new software program called Atlas. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so Mayor, Councilmember Clark, the Department of Revenue, so the Arizona State Department of Revenue is charged with TPT collections. It's all passes through the Arizona State. They put into statute that the cities and towns and counties within Arizona would foot the bill to put that system into place. So the amount that you see in non-departmental is our portion associated with that legislative requirement to pay for the new system.
I just love the state. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe I'm confused, but that service charge basically by ADOR, is that fund is then swept by the state into the presumptive cancer fund? Is that what that money is used for?
Mayor, Councilmember Tomlin-Chuff, no, the amount that's going for the Atlas is 100% for funding the DOR computer system upgrade.
Mayor, members of the council, that was the case. That was true. There was a charge for the Department of Revenue for collections, and there was legislature that took that money and allocated it instead into the presumptive cancer fund. And but then, in addition to that, new legislation passed to require the cities to pay for a new tax system. So it's a different charge. That other charge is still going into presumptive cancer. This is a new charge to the cities to develop a new tax collection system.
Okay, new year, new
Don't you
charges.
just love it? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, mic sharing over here. That brings us to the non-departmental presentation. A non-departmental has approximately a $10.5 million budget. There are no positions that are allocated within the non-departmental department. The majority of the budget in here is operating 96% with small percentages for salary-related items. I realize I just said there's no positions in here, but the contract for long-term disability as well as unemployment insurance is located in this department. And then there's a small charge for internal charges within here as well. Some of the items that are budgeted within non-departmental are mega event expenditures, the Arizona Department of Revenue tax system, which we've just been discussing, the ASDA sales tax rebates, and the employee engagement program. Some of the memberships that are also included within the non-departmental department include the League of Arizona Cities and Towns. The membership for MAG is in here, Westmark, the National League of Cities, and the Alliance for Innovation. We have 4 supplementals within this department request for next year. The first is an ongoing placeholder, so to speak, for mega events. Typically when we've come to council with mega events in the past, we've had multi-million-dollar budgets for large events, like the Super Bowl or Final Four, which is taking place currently. We've also had some large events come into the city, like the Taylor Swift and things like that. So we have decided to put an ongoing budget in here for mega events This budget would only be expended if there was a revenue offset. So if an event came in, we would have a placeholder for those expenses, but we would also have revenue to offset those expenses. The $236,000 for the Department of Revenue tax system we just discussed. We've increased the ASTA rebate by $1.5 million. Again, this is a pass-through, so there's a revenue offset for that dollar amount. We just need appropriation in the budget in order to make that payment. And an employee engagement program for $250,000. There's also a revenue offset for that item as well. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Could you explain to the people who, I know we're familiar with the ASTA rebate, but basically it's a pass-through essentially, isn't it? We collect the tax and then we everything that's collected in the stadium footprint, and then we pass that through to ASTA. And we're
Yeah.
anticipating more revenue? Is that what that's for?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, yes, and because of the events that Ms. Lindsay mentioned, it's creating more revenue. So therefore, we give back the unrestricted portion of our sales tax collections back to the Arizona State Tourism Authority, ASTA.
Right, so just so the residents understand, we don't keep the tax that we collect in the stadium footprint. We pass that through to ASTA, including the RV sales and other things that happen out there. We're just a pass-through.
Mayor, members of council, that's correct, except as Mr. Hill mentioned, the restricted portions. So we retain the public safety sales tax and the transportation sales tax. We rebate back the general fund portion, which is 1.9%, although in the case of those large sales like RV sales and vehicle sales, it's 1.2% because the
They're over 5,000.
correct, the
Okay.
items over 5,000.
Right, okay, I just want to make sure people understand that. I think it's important that residents are aware of that. I do have another question, and maybe I don't remember, that's probably what the case is that we have the transfers out from the general fund for the repayment of the money that went to the NHL. We're still paying that back, and I don't know where to find it in here. I think it used to be under non-departmental, but I think it got moved. But it was a transfer to either solid waste, landfill, or water services. So where can I find that in the budget?
Mayor, members of the council, that will be part of the budget presentation that we bring back to council on the 16th. It will be included in the transfers in and out portion of that presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have Jenny Durder with organizational performance.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to be here today to present our budget. On the first slide, and the clicker is not working. Thank you. So our first slide, you can see that our overall budget is $751,229. The majority of that covering our 3 FTEs for our department. You can see our budget breakdown here, where 70% of our budget is our salaries, and 25% of our budget is operating expenses, which are used for the external vendors that we use to support our programs. I have just a small selection of our KPIs from our balanced scorecard here for you today. We have the percent increased in published open data sets. We have some KPIs about our balanced scorecard program and employees that participate in our data training programs that we run. I also just have a small selection of accomplishments from our department. First is for balanced scorecard, which I gave you an in-depth presentation on last week. And then next is our Lean Academy, which we stood up earlier this year, where we have trained 83 employees in the city in Lean Six Sigma practices. I am sure most of you know what those are, but those are all about teaching employees how to look at the processes that they're in and improve them. They learn how to do root cause analysis, data analysis, and other things that help them improve their processes and make sure that we're providing the best and most streamlined services possible for our residents. Later this month, we're going to be kicking off that program with our first cohort graduation, where they will start, every employee that's participated in the program will be assigned to a Lean project in cross-departmental teams. And we have 5 projects that are starting, and then we've got a backlog of a bunch more to do as we move forward. Next, just some high-level updates on our data governance program and our open data program. We've continued to run our data analytics group with quarterly meetings to train and upskill our employees and build a community of practice here in Glendale. And we're working with IT to implement the Calibra software to improve our data inventory processes. Our open data sets that have been published this year in conjunction with IT and the departments where the data comes from are police calls for service and city contract expenditures. And we have additional data sets that are in the pipeline to be published. I do not have any budget supplementals for you at this time, but I was asked to provide a detailed budget, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about it. Thank you.
Next, we have Mike Kingery with Audit.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Good morning, Mayor and Council. Here we go. There we go. I am a department of one, as you know, so for that reason, when you look at the pie chart, the majority goes to operating expense, which is for our contracted firms that do internal audits on our behalf. For the performance measures, the number of audits done each year will go up and down depending on the scope of each engagement and how much each of the contracted vendors with their expertise can tackle the various engagements and how much money is budgeted to each one. So with that in mind, the amount is staying the same. Right now, the contracted vendors that we have, those contracts are expiring on June 30th. So an RSOQ was just done, and a number of respondents have come in, and we'll be selecting soon. I will bring to the audit committee at the next meeting the new contracted vendors for the next period, and then that will come to council as well for approval. And then as far as accomplishments go this year and the next are pretty much administrative years heavy for me. The internal audit standards were completely redone by the Institute of Internal Auditors. So to create a new policy and procedures manual in line with those new standards was quite the undertaking. I'm also redoing the risk assessment to simplify that process, and I'm compiling those results right now to bring the FY25 audit plan forward to the audit committee in June, which again will then come to the council for approval. I do not have any supplemental requests, so if there's any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Now we have Jim Brown with Human Resources.
Well, good morning, Mayor, members of the council. Pleased to be before you this morning to go over the risk and human resources requests for the new budget cycle. First, I'd just like to say, certainly appreciate the continuous support that we have from the council and from the city manager's office. And I'm very proud of the work that my staff has done over this last year. We've had a few retirements in some critical positions, critical areas within our department. And we also had a sudden loss of a key employee that really challenged our department over the course of the year. but certainly we're resilient, and our staff has done a phenomenal job of stepping up and rising to the occasion. I am happy to say that we are fully staffed for the first time in about a year and a half. So we're finally getting our feet under us. We are getting some momentum, and again, very proud of the work that our staff has done. And as an internal service department, we understand it's in order for us to be successful, certainly our customers have to be successful. And so we do strive every day to give our directors, our employees, the tools they need to attract, manage, and retain the very best employees. So I'd like to say that first, and then also not to be outdone by engineering, I have to mention this. So we did have an employee engagement survey, and I'm proud to say that 100% of the HR and risk staff responded to that survey. And a couple of things that stood out there, you know, that certainly reflected some highly engaged staff, which is good. But two things in particularly stood out that I was very proud of. And one, to the question, the people I work with treat each other with respect. 100% of HR and risk staff responded affirmatively to that they believe that's 100% true. And in another question, my immediate coworkers consistently go the extra mile to achieve great results. Again, 100% indicated that that's absolutely true. So very proud of the work that they do. They step up, they help each other out, and they get the work done. So very important. So now I'd like to get into the presentation, and the purpose statement, the reason on the first slide. Oh, I've got it right here, don't I? Sorry, there it is. The purpose statement, or the reason that we exist as a human resources department, and this is developed by the staff, but it's really to create an inclusive and safe environment for our employees, our customers, our residents. And our service is characterized by fairness, open communication, accountability, trust, and respect. So that's important to the staff, and that's the reason why we're here. As far as our, let me get this thing. There we go. The pie chart, you can see, again, we're internal services. 93% of our budget is made up of the benefits fund, the risk trust fund, as well as the workers' compensation trust fund. For our balanced scorecard and some of the measures that I'll be presenting today, one of the things that we do is continuous improvement. We look at our processes every year. We want to make efficiencies to those processes. So we did target we targeted 4 of our processes for review and potential improvement for this fiscal year, and I'm happy to say we were actually, we targeted 4, but we were actually able to make 6 process improvements. And I'll get into what those are as I get into the accomplishment page here in a second. Another target that we had is to implement our wellness and safety programs, and really focused on mitigating medical costs. And we have implemented several of our wellness programs, and as you can see, the results are over the last 3 years, we've been able to come in under the medical trend as far as medical costs are concerned. Medical trend over the last 3 years has been around 7% or higher, and each year we've come in either around 2% under medical trends, which I think is attributable to the work that we do with our wellness program with our employees. Also, in that we want to make sure that our compensation is competitive, that we're able to compete with our fellow cities, our benchmark cities, and I'm happy to say that we conducted a class and comp study this fiscal year, and we are implementing new ranges to make sure that we are at or above the market so that we can continue to attract and retain our employees. Another target that we had in our balanced scorecard was to strengthen our workforce development, and that's done through training and development of our employees. We have implemented an online learning management system. It's called Learn, and in that system, we're able to roll out direct training to our employees as it's needed, and most of that's online. We do some in-person training as well, And proud to say really that we've almost doubled the number of enrollments in employee development and courses through the LEARN program. So we had about just under 3,500 enrollments last fiscal year. This year we're rolling up towards 8,000. So that's a lot of training. It's a lot of online training that we've got available to our employees, and we continue to improve in that area as well. As far as our accomplishments, I won't go through all of these. There's a lot, and I'm glad to say there's a lot, but I'll go through a few of these. One of the accomplishments certainly was the completion of our class and comp study. Traditionally, we have done that every 2 years. We've shifted on that. Now we have to do it every year. We need to make sure we're on top of this, and we continue to be competitive in the marketplace. And so, this year we did complete this. We did it a little differently. I had talked to the city manager, and I know he meets with the West Valley city managers, and what we did this year was we incorporated the West Valley in the market study process. We engaged them in a process that was very effective, and we're going to continue to work with them in making sure that our pay is competitive and we stay up to the market. We also are in the process really right now, and we've made significant progress on the Dimensions timekeeping system, upgrading our timekeeping system to make sure we're in compliance and to streamline our timekeeping processes across the organization. So that's going to that will make some significant improvements in the way that we track time for employees as we go forward. We've received almost 14,000 applications for positions within the city over the course of the year. So we've received almost 14,000 applications. We've reviewed and processed those. We hired 417 new employees into the city of Glendale, and we promoted or moved into new positions over 200 existing employees. So that's almost 620 positions that we've been able to fill over the course of this year. One of the things that I think is important to note is that we are focusing on reducing the time to fill vacancies, and we're continuing to focus on that. We have reduced the time to fill from 102 days down to 88 days, and we want to get that down even lower, and so we'll continue to work on that. But the sooner we can get those vacancies filled, the sooner we can get those employees trained, the sooner we get services out to the public. We've also improved our PA process. This is one of those process improvements I talked about earlier. Every time we have an employee change positions, get an assignment pay, go out on leave, anything that happens with those employees, and we've got close to 2,000 employees in the organization, there has to be a PA process, a personnel action process. And our staff has to touch those, process those, make sure they're accurate, and make sure they get through the system so that people get paid, so that they're moved into the correct position, so that their time is done correctly. So it's a lot of effort, and we've been able to improve that process and make it better, and we're continuing to review that and seeing what we can do to continuously improve that. Another area that I'll note is in our wellness area. We were selected by the Phoenix Business Journal as one of the healthiest employers in the Valley. We're a finalist for that. Along with some of the other things that we've been able to achieve in wellness, such as the Healthy Arizona Worksites Program Platinum Award. And again, we held our second annual Glendale 5K. It's a run walk. We had about 300 folks attend that last year. This year, we've almost doubled that to nearly 600. So it's been successful, and all of that is attributable to keeping our medical costs below trend, which is very important. And again, there's a few more here that I won't go through all of them. But we've got evaluations now that are streamlined. They're online. We do those through the Perform system, so that's an improvement. We've offered over 150 courses online, and we've increased our enrollment significantly. So a lot of progress made in those areas. I'll get now to the supplemental requests. We are asking for 2 FTEs for the Human Resources Risk Management Department this year. One of those is a Human Resources Technician, And as I had indicated to you, every time there's movement of an employee within the organization, in terms of position, salary, anything, we have to touch that. We have to run a PA for that. And it increases the overall workload in human resources. And in order to keep up with that, as we add positions organizationally, we need to add positions in HR to make sure that we can manage that. And I'm asking that we have an additional HR tech to help us manage the workload with regard to processing our employees as they come in. Also, we're asking for a business analyst. As we improve processes, we've also added technology to our department through NeoGov, which helps us with our recruitment process, Learn, which is our online training. We've got something called Origami, which helps us process our workers' compensation and risk management claims. We're also expanding that to our employee relations claims. So with all of that technology, we've got one business analyst who's trying to keep up, but we really need an additional resource in that area to help us keep up with that technology. We're asking too, and we ask each year for temporary personnel to help us in times such as open enrollment and other times where we have to deploy employees to different areas, and then we can bring in some temps to back them up and make sure we stay functional while they're working on those projects. One of the things that I brought to you earlier this year was a discussion in workshop on Juneteenth and Indigenous Peoples Day. We had discussed possibly making those official holidays, and the decision, the consensus on that was let's add some dollars to the budget so that we can do more in those weeks with our employees within the organization. So that there's an ask there for some additional monies to use for those two things. And then also, you see $610,000 as a reduction here. That's to move our benefits, our staff that works specifically with benefits, into the benefits fund. So that's a reduction that you see there. And then with regard to risk management, you know, each year we see increase in insurance, unfortunately. And so based on insurance costs as well as claims experience, we do an analysis each year, and this is just an ask to increase our self-insured program so that we can continue to maintain our insurance costs and our claims. And then the same is true for workers' compensation. Again, we're self-insured, and there is an increase in cost with medical trends as well as inflationary items and other things, so and claims experience. And claims are getting more and more complicated, more and more expensive, and that's an ask to make sure that we can remain self-insured in workers' compensation. And the same is true with our benefits program. Again, you can see the $610,000 there is the positions we want to add to that. And what the reason for adding positions into and again, it's not an additional position, it's just existing positions moving into the benefits fund. But the reason for that is that offsets that full amount going into the general fund. Now it's split up over multiple funds, so it does relieve the general fund somewhat to do that. But again, we're asking to increase the benefits trust fund in order to cover our claims costs, and then also having some temporary help in our benefits area as well. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, we would like to know if you would like to take a short break or keep on trucking.
Let's do a couple more.
Fine, try.
You need to take a break? You can. See ya.
Next, we have Michelle W. with Field Operations.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. And that's an internal joke. I told him I wouldn't speak unless he said my last name. So. I'm pleased to be here today representing the 192 people, most of which are in the field today working. I'm not going to go through. Thank you. I'm not going to go through a lot of these upfront slides. I'm happy to answer any questions you want to. The one thing I do want to point out on this slide is in our purpose statement, it does say by supporting critical functions, and that's what we do in field operations. And a testament to that is we've been mentioned 23 times by our partner departments here in their accomplishments, and that's what we want to do. We don't have to be frontline, we don't have to be first on the scene, but we're there to improve their lives, both our other departments and the residents, and make them better. 192 people, operating budget of almost 79 or almost $80 million. There's a lot that's salary, there's also a lot that's operating, and we'll get into detail on that shortly. This is solid waste and landfill. We are, as everybody else is, revising our performance measures. Landfill, we did drop a little bit this year. We are operating in north cell, so our compaction will go down a bit. We do want to get it back up. Solid waste, it's an accomplishment to go out and pick up everybody as we schedule to do, and we want to make sure that we are picking people up when we say we pick them up, so we track that. In our fleet, I want to call your attention to that bottom one. We are a support department, so our fleet availability is huge, and we want people's vehicles to be up and ready 95% of the time, and we do prioritize public service in there. If they need a fire engine at every station, that's the priority, and we make sure that 95% of the time they are up and working, and public safety a little bit higher than that, so we are meeting that metric. A new one this year for us is our asset management. We want to improve our HVAC preventative maintenance and schedule compliance. It did drop in FY24, and the reason is we have had additional PMs to our tracking, so we are doing additional preventative maintenance this year. We've added electrical into it as well, and so we did drop slightly, so we are now measuring our preventative maintenance across all trades. A comment was made Tuesday on the use of interns, so I did want to say that in facilities and in fleet, we are using interns. So what we're doing is we're taking people that are graduating from the technical schools, we're pulling them in on an intern type basis, a paid position, until they get the experience and qualifications. They're being mentored by senior staff until they make and are able to meet our minimum qualifications. So we've worked with HR, and that's just a great program we've got going, allowing us to have more people working on a progression up into the skilled positions. Our accomplishments, we are a city in the valley that has kept on schedule. We do serve every citizen in Glendale twice a week, and then additionally with bulk trash and additionally with sweeping, we have stayed on schedule. We've gone through a lot of challenges to do that, but very proud to say that we have stayed on schedule. HR's been very helpful in doing such. And one accomplishment that we noticed a couple weeks ago that I do want to mention is our landfill has never closed. When we have said that we are open these hours, we've stayed open these hours. And with our network being down, we looked back at the last time we closed and we could not find a day we said we would be open even with inclement weather and actually closed. So I did want to point that out. Facilities, these guys, these people, these staff, this is a group that just gets it done. We could go on and on about their accomplishments, but these people just have that attitude that we'll find a way, we'll make a way, and we get it done. And so just done tremendous work, a lot of it in the background. And again, they make other departments better, and that's our role in this. Another thing that was asked of other people across the department, or other departments across the department this year, we did have 9 winners in our Success Factors Awards. So very proud of those people that did win. Fleet management, the numbers are up there. We add a lot of vehicles. We keep up on the maintenance. We keep our metrics. We were named a top 50 government leading fleets in 22 and 23. And also, last week we're notified 2024 as well. So I'm very proud of that group for continually improving. And the other thing that happened recently was we did receive our ASE Blue Seal of approval, so we have it for our light duty shop and our heavy duty shop as well. It just means that our mechanics are top quality and are continually improving. Our supplemental requests, we do have a lot of them. We do cover a lot of the city, so our electricity, we're asking for $216,000. This is for approved utility rate increases, as well as the new part of Heroes Park that comes online, increased usage at recreation centers. So field operations does pay the electric use for most general fund, so most recreation facilities, parks as well. So that is included in that. Facilities 5060 is broken out. That is our custodial services, and that is an increase to the custodial contract. Cemetery supplies and services, we're asking for $7,000. That's our training certifications and inflationary cost increases. The facilities line supplies is inflationary cost, and this is materials that our staff have on their truck, so it's truck stock. Professional and contractual is those services that we don't do in-house, things like elevator maintenance, high lights that we have to do at parks, we do contract that out. The next one, park maintenance, we do maintain parks in terms of the lights, the poles, the wire, service entrances, restrooms. So this is an increase in park maintenance to cover those. And then the last one is building maintenance and repair. This is the actual parts that our staff uses to do the maintenance. And again, it's an inflationary cost increase, but also represents a higher level of maintenance that we're now putting into our buildings. So this is filters, doors, toilets, air conditioning compressors, and those. These are very similar, but a different fund. So field operations has the operational control for the facility at Gripstick. Electricity, same thing, it's utility rate increases. Natural gas is also a rate increase. Professional, contractual, building maintenance, repair, same as I just explained in facilities. But this is one of the few locations that our solid waste services actually charges back, and the reason is it's part of the partners, so we do track the charges. So it's an additional almost $2,000 there. And then utilities represents, sorry, additional water usage at the property, and that's a direct revenue impact to that, because that means more classes are happening out there, more training. The next one I've got is landfill. So landfill does pay their own electricity, so this is approved rate increases from the utility company. We are asking for a new FTE, so the $161,000 is to fund a new landfill and recycling management inspector. So they are going to inspect both at the curb and then any other material coming in the landfill that's not appropriate. This does include one-time charges, so there's a vehicle in here. Enterprise funds pay for their own vehicles, so there is one-time cost of $62,000 in this supplemental as well. Line supplies for both here and solid waste below are our personal protective equipment, inflationary increases that have happened on those, gloves, hearing protection, other requirements that we've gone up, and then our next one is radio, same with solid waste. It's our annual service fee and repairs has gone up. In solid waste, our contract labor, we do a great job here of augmenting staff when we need to, and so this is temporary staff we bring on. When we know bulk trash is going to get heavy coming up, and so we will pull contract staff on. It gives us a great opportunity to see people, how well they work before we put them in. Line supplies and radio are as they are in landfill. The last line item is a combination of one-time for container purchase and then ongoing repair for both our roll-off and front-load services. So these are our commercial containers. This slide is our additional vehicle replacement fund. So vehicles that we are going to buy in vehicle replacements. So you've heard from the police department on their vehicles, service workers going to parks. This is for fleet to be part of that purchase their vehicles, maintain their vehicles. But this is the one-time purchase of those vehicles, adding them into the vehicle replacement fund. This is our fleet services. So our first one there is shop equipment. In the past, we've asked for capital money, and now we want to make it ongoing. So this next year, we are replacing a hydraulic shop press, air conditioning recovery units. We want to make sure if we're doing work on the air conditioning systems in vehicles, we're recovering the Freon such that we can recycle that and put it back in the next one. Oil dispenser, hose and guns, air hoses, jack stands. We just want a budget to do our shop equipment on a regular type basis. Next line seems kind of high, so I'll break it down for you. The $532,000 is many different lines within our fleet services. The big one is accidents, and that's about $250,000. We outsource all our body shop work and accidents. And these are actually just an appropriation because we do charge that through the Risk Management Trust Fund and others, and so a lot of it is recovered. We do need the budget appropriation to bill it. It also is an increase, our software diagnostics of $3,300, other contracted repairs of $40,000, GPS equipment of $10,000. We've got some uniforms in there. We've got $100,000 for new tires and $32,000 for capping of tires. The last item is we're asking for a tire specialist, and it's actually a negative cost because we are actually taking a contract that we use right now to do tires for us in the evening hours, and so we're going to bring on a new tire specialist, and that'll actually save us $25,000 by converting that $91,000 that we're spending currently. So there is an ongoing cost of $66,000, but we are saving some money. That's it for the supplementals, but I do want to talk solid waste and our residential and then commercial fuel surcharge. So I don't know if there's questions that we want to go through on supplementals before we get into that.
Question?
Just one,
Yes.
which you knew I was going to ask. And can we implement some kind of sliding scale with regard to fuel charges and the surcharges we put on our customers?
I'm going to ask you to explain that, but can we go through that when I'm done the next 4 slides?
Pardon?
Can we go through that when I'm done the next 4 slides? Because I'm going to immediately
Sure.
now go into the fuel surcharge.
Okay, question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Ms. Fontanka, where are we carrying, I'm looking on page 295, we're carrying the costs for outsourcing our MRF. Is that under professional services? Is that what that number is?
So, wrong page. Mayor, council members, Councilmember Tomachoff, under professional services in the MRF division, that is our amount that we've got budgeted for processing of the recycling material. So that is would be our total cost for processing. You can see last year in fiscal year 23, our actuals were $687. So we pay them. We've got budgeted the full amount for processing the full residential, but we do get a rebate back. And so we budget the full amount, the $1.1 million, but we expect our actual expenditures to be somewhat less than that. But that's the contract for processing of our recycling services.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that's what I thought it was. So, and the cost hasn't increased.
It is not. You're
Okay,
correct.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, you may have mentioned it, but I may have missed it regarding the recycling. We had some presentations earlier regarding the replacement of the recycling bins with the blue bins, and that we didn't get the grant for it, and so we were replacing those as we were purchasing new bins, and we were replacing them with the blue bins. Where is that reflected in the budget? I'm looking in page 293 for recycling. Is it in there, a line item in there somewhere?
Mayor and council members, Councilmember Melnar, the amount for the bins is part of the utilities and landfill line item.
Okay.
So we have not increased the amount. We're just doing it as now instead of replacing, we're just changing the color of the barrel that we are replacing.
So are we no longer purchasing the old color of the recycle bin, and we're purchasing only new color for the recycle bin?
Mayor and council members, Councilmember Melnar, that is correct.
Okay, and how many more years before you think the city will be fully replaced?
Mayor and council members, Councilmember Melnar, we roughly replace 1/10 of the city every year. That can be more garbage, more recycling. I think garbage gets a heavier use, but there's some bins that are going to last longer than that. Some that aren't going to make it that long. So roughly about 10 years to replace them all.
And do you replace these simply based on one wears out and you replace it with a blue, or do you try to do it by neighborhoods at a time?
Mayor and council members, Councilmember Melnar, we have tried to do it by neighborhoods where if we're going to go in and replace more than one in a neighborhood, we will take the green ones back in, we'll clean them, wash them, and reuse them as garbage containers. We'll attempt to do more than just one at a time if at all possible.
Okay, thank you.
Next.
So with that, Mayor, I do want to talk, as we did last year, our residential, and then I'll get into the commercial impact of fuel, which for solid waste is diesel. And if anybody's noticed at the pumps recently, it's the average price in Maricopa County has gone up 55 cents over the last week. So this isn't a day-to-day cost. We budget kind of on an annual basis on what we determine. So what this shows is that in fiscal years 19 through 21, our costs were relatively stable, increasing slightly. And then in FY22, we saw a huge jump in costs, and they've continued to go up. We've included for you a chart off to the right. Our costs per gallon of fuel continues to go up. Our miles driven do not. So one of our things and initiatives we've implemented in residential is to improve our routes and decrease the amount of time we spend on the road, and we've done just that. So currently, and I think this is through February, we've driven 325,000 miles this year, and we're on pace to drive 434,000, which is a decrease from last year of over 21,000 miles. So we are not driving more miles, but our diesel fuel cost continues to go up. What we did was we looked at the difference from what we had projected, and we look back at the last time we did a rate study and a rate increase. And so for current fiscal year, we had projected we would spend about $900,000 in fuel. We're on pace to spend current year more than $1.4 million, and that equates to roughly the 90 cents per household per month that we've done in the fuel surcharge. Looking forward to next year, our projected plan in the forecast had us spending about $1 million. With the fuel costs, we are looking at spending $1.6 million. That comes to a deficit of $613,000, and when we divide that by, and we worked with Water and Budget and Finance on this, we're looking at 56,000 households, and that comes out to 91 cents per household per month. That's residential, and so there's a diesel cost impact there. There's also a impact to our commercial diesel cost, and since we didn't talk about this, but I want to make sure we're also doing it, we do have an approved rate increase of 5% for fiscal year 25. We want to do an adjustment for fuel of 3%, which will cover that, and our roll-off services, same thing, so that our residents are not subsidizing the commercial customers. And so overall, the recommendation is 91 cents per household per month for a fuel surcharge for residents, and then a 3% in our commercial rate increase to cover the cost of fuel. And with that, Mayor, I'd be happy to answer any questions on the fuel.
I do understand the need for the rate increase and the charge of 91 cents. But I would like assurance that at some point, I believe the fuel costs will come down. And what mechanism do we have in there to reflect a decrease in that 91 cents per month? How are we going to accommodate it when there is a decrease? How do we build that into the rate structure?
Mayor and council members, Councilmember Clark, I think if I understand your question is, how would we build that in the rate structure? And if that is the question, I'd be looking at staff and any consultant we use the next time we go through and do the rate model before we present to council is build it into that base so we get rid of the fuel surcharge.
When will we be looking at the next rate model?
Mayor and council members, Councilmember Clark, we do it annually internally. I think we're looking at in the next fiscal year, we're going to, because I think we've got already a rate approved for January, and so after that, we'd be coming back with any other one. So
I guess what I'm looking for is flexibility on the part of the department, so that when the rate goes up, I mean, if we accept a rate, say of 91 cents or 92 cents, you can't raise that, you can't lower that, because that's the rate council's accepted. I want to build enough flexibility in so that when the pressures of the cost of diesel rise, you can automatically raise the rate to reflect that cost. And in vice versa, when the cost of diesel goes down, I want you to be able to automatically decrease that rate. So that's what I'm looking for when we talk about our next rate increase.
Mayor, members of the council, I understand your request. I'm going to ask Mr. Gibson to speak a little bit about how we bill in the city, and also Vicky, but also there is a requirement that we have to notify people and post 60 days in advance. So that kind of ties our hands. But Ms. Rios, do you want to speak on?
Yes, not working? Mayor, members of the council. As Ms. Watenko said, it's difficult to build in that flexibility that you're asking about, because we don't have the notification process necessarily if we're lowering a rate, but then if it goes back up and we have to do it again and raise it, we have all of these notification requirements, plus we have system issues. We have to get systems changed one way and then systems changed to bill a different way. So the best thing, and my recommendation, is to do it periodically and then make the adjustment. So we are monitoring it, and as Ms. Watenko brought it to your attention here, she's making a recommendation. We'll be doing that again in the fall, although she said, you know, we have a rate increase plan for January. We'll be looking at it and talking to council about it. We expect around the August-September timeframe. So we look at it continuously. Also, because it's not floating up and down, if it goes higher than we expected, but we leave the rate the same, then we're sort of catching up. When it floats back down, we're kind of catching back up from when it went sort of higher. So we're monitoring it closely along with Ms. Watenko and her staff, and bringing it to you in the manner that is timely for us. So rather than trying to do it week by week or month by month, that's very difficult because of the constraints and notifications. But we are looking at it on a regular basis. And if it were to change significantly, we'd come back to council.
I appreciate your answer. I don't like it, but I appreciate it. And I'll just give you an example. Last year, I don't know about diesel because I don't buy diesel, but gas was up around $4 a gallon. Right now it's at what, $3.77, $3.80 to $3.88. It depends on where you go. That's a 20-cent decrease in regular gas. I don't know what it did in diesel, to be honest with you. But I don't think it's fair to be charging people when I'm using a hypothetical case right now, when we were paying $4 a gallon and now we're paying $3.80 a gallon. And I'm not interested in building a cushion. I'm interested in being fair with our consumer base and not overcharging them on something. And when the rates do go up, I do want to recapture what we're not getting. So, I don't know. You're all very brilliant people. You've been working at this for years. You ought to be able to figure out a way to build some kind of flexibility in. Otherwise, it's a once-a-year change. And you're only capturing a snapshot of what it is at that time once a year when we're discussing it. And it doesn't reflect what may have occurred in the past. So I understand where you're coming from. I understand how difficult things are. But there ought to be a way to reinvent the wheel and figure this out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. Two things. First, to follow up on the Councilmember Clark's questions. We don't necessarily buy fuel at the daily rate that consumers would pay at a gas station, do we? We have longer-term contracts that help us lock in fuel prices and that we can provide more stability than the Circle K down the end of the street would do. Is that correct?
Mayor, council members, Councilmember Turner, our fuel contract, it's essentially the western region market. So if the stock market or the price of barrels of oil goes up, our price goes up, and we pay based upon that. So I guess the short answer is we pay less than what consumers pay at a gas station, but our charges, our cost for fuel does fluctuate throughout the year with the cost of oil on the open market.
Okay. But I believe in the past and soon, we have linking agreements that we get into that are based on contracts that other cities have provided, and I thought those were kind of a fixed rate price on fuel.
Mayor and council members, Councilmember Turner, it's fixed in the sense that it's a percent or amount per gallon over that index. So it is all index based.
Okay, thank you. And then back to what I was going to ask initially. Is it your department or transportation or maybe somebody else that handles alley maintenance?
Mayor and council members, Councilmember Turner, I think that's split. We do some, I know transportation does some as well. They would take care of, and it's some alleys and not others, so I don't want to say too much about what they do. I think they do landscaping, so weeds and that type of thing, and solid waste does other aspects of alleys. But I
Okay.
think it's split.
Well, transportation's coming up, I think, next or soon this morning, so I'll tell you, and they're in the room and they can hear as well. But I want to give a compliment to, I guess, both departments on alleyway maintenance in this most recent year. It's been markedly improved over the past, even though we've had really quite a rainy season, and weed growth everywhere, including my front yard, has been dramatic. But particularly on behalf of the residents in the Sands Estates neighborhood, I'd like to thank you and transportation for having done a great job of keeping the weeds down this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I do want to say, even though we disagree over fuel, that you are one of the outstanding leaders in the city of Glendale. I recognize your work. There are very few departments or department heads that I would say that about, but I want to commend you for your leadership. You are an invaluable asset to the city of Glendale. Thank you.
Lauren?
Thank you. So I just wanted to, on the fuel surcharges, how does that work with our bulk trash collection? Because that's built into our rate, so is that a separate, I don't know how, we don't charge separately. Explain to me how that works.
Yeah, Mayor and council members, Councilmember Tomashoff, when I spoke residential, that's all the services we provide to residential. So that's both our, weekly trash service, weekly recycling service, bulk trash. It's all that wrapped up. Everything we do for the residents is wrapped up into what I showed you there for our fuel impact. So we bill the residents one rate per month, and so bulk trash is part of this as well. So all the miles and that are wrapped into that.
Okay, and so it's, maybe I'm mistaken, but it's my observation anyway, that bulk trash, basically they drive up and down every street to identify where the bulk trash, we've never had to, make an appointment or say, come to my address and pick up. So I don't know if there's any opportunities maybe to take a look at, and we can, maybe talk about this at a workshop or something, but for people to actually schedule their bulk trash pickup so we don't have people out there driving up and down every single street, that they know you've got to sort of like the hazardous waste, but just say, this month I'm going to have stuff out in front of my house, so I'm going to need a stop. And then they can schedule the stops rather than having these vehicles driving up and down every street in the city, which is, the cost of fuel, it gets expensive.
Yeah, Mayor and council members, Councilmember Tomashoff, we can definitely look at a scheduled bulk trash service. I do know that we ask residents and, enforce that we ask them about, be out by 6 a.m. on Monday morning. We do have inspectors, drive-through inspectors, do look at the pile first, foreman look at it. So if there is an entire street that does not have it on, we won't send the truck down there for that exact reason, is that it is very costly. But we want to get them when we're in that area, so we don't want to miss anybody, but we do try and do that. But we can definitely look at appointment-based bulk trash when we look at services.
So, Mayor, if I could, so but the inspector goes out and drives around. The inspectors go up and drive up and down every street. And I mean, it's difficult to identify because some people put it out on Thursday, some people put it out on Saturday, Sunday. Some put it out if they didn't come on Monday, they might still put it out on Tuesday because they can, they can see that they haven't come yet. But I feel like, I mean, we are using fuel to determine where we need to go to come back later to pick these piles up. And if somebody misses the deadline for scheduling their pickup, then I would think they would need to schedule a special pickup once their stuff's out there, and I know we do charge for that.
Yeah.
So I just think we need to maybe be thinking a little more frugally about how we run. I know everybody loves the bulk trash program. I love it too. But with the cost of fuel the way it is and having to, have surcharges like this, I would like us to try to maybe take a more frugal approach at identifying where we're supposed to go pick things up.
Mayor and councilors, we can look at that.
Thank you.
That's it, thank you.
Next up, we have Shahid with Transportation.
Good morning, Mayor and the Council. My name is Shahid Abbas, Director Transportation. I have with me Deputy Director Transportation Prabha Dabala, who is going to assist me through these presentations. So the Transportation Department has 5 distinct divisions, which are transit, traffic engineering and operations, airport, streets and right-of-ways, and planning. We have a total of 118 FTEs, 5 temporary staff, with a total force staff of 123. The mission of the Transportation Department is ensure safe and efficient circulation of vehicular, bicycle, and pedestrian traffic, to minimize pollutant air emissions, and to promote economic development throughout the city. This year we are proposing, for the financial year 25, we are proposing a budget of approximately $41 million. And that budget is distributed 35% in the salaries and the benefits, 63% in operating and maintenance services, and about 12% for the internal service charges. The city has recently implemented Balanced Scorecard program. The program lists transportation strategic objectives, initiatives, and the key performance measures, and more importantly, the progress made towards achieving the key performance measures. Improving community experience is our strategic objective, and we strive to achieve this by providing safe and efficient transportation system that is sustainable, livable, and equitable, and also aesthetically pleasing. Provides multimodal choices to our residents so they can choose where to live, work, and play. The next 4 slides will list our key performance measures and the progress made towards achieving the stated objectives. The first on the list is improving our existing roadway infrastructure, which is derived from the payment management program that we presented to the council in the recent past, and it is a 10-year program. As part of this program, we are committed to rehabilitate and improve 100 to 120 miles of our streets every year over the next 10 years, with the end goal of achieving 72 PCI. This year, we are on target to complete 130 miles of streets. Second on the list is the right-of-way landscape restoration. We have 35 miles of right-of-way that needs restoration. The program is spread over 7 years. Last year, council gave consensus to move forward with this program and set aside $4 billion toward this program. We are targeting to complete 6 to 8 miles of landscape restoration each year over a 7-year period. And we shall achieve this target before the end of this year. To provide a safe and convenient alternate mode of transportation, the next on the list is transit services. We are targeting to increase the transit rides by at least 5% by the end of this year. We may be able to exceed this target. This year, we launched on-demand transit service through mobile application known as microtransit, and we are already seeing 18% increase in demand. This initiative deals with improving the intersection safety and the pedestrian crossing safety. To identify the root cause of safety problems and appropriate fixes to those problems, we plan to do 27 in-house safety studies throughout the city over the next 3 years. We are on target to complete 10 such studies by the end of this year. Last and the most important on the list is our teen driving safety education program, known as the Live at 25 program. Young adults between the age of 16 and 20 has the highest traffic fatality rates among all other groups in the nation. We have 2 National Safety Council certified instructors, which imparts, in collaboration with National Safety Council, defensive driving training to high school kids. All of our 9 high schools in Glendale participate in a Live at 25 program, and we would have trained over 1,400 students by the end of this school year. Recently, we were awarded National Safety Council Partner in Safety Award by the National Safety Council. We are the only city in the entire country which offered this program to our young adults. And only recently, the NSC has informed us they're moving a legislation to make Live at 25 compulsory for all high school kids. The next 3 slides list the department's accomplishment for the financial year 2024. There are a total of 32 items on these slides. I am not planning to go through all these accomplishments, but I shall touch upon which I feel are the most important and interesting. But if you have a question on any of the items listed on this slide, please do not hesitate to ask. The first slide mostly lists accomplishments related to transit, traffic management, operation and safety, and airport. I'm going to highlight few. We launched a bus stop advertising program this year. The council gave a consensus to move forward with this program in 23, and so far we have brought a revenue of $49,000. The program is proven to be a very cost-effective. We completed the bus stop improvements at 36 locations. Last year, council showed interest in flashing yellow arrows. That certainly contributes toward improving safety and traffic flow through the intersection where they are warranted. We received a grant of about $3.8 million in federal monies and are installing 12 such flashing yellow arrows at a cost of $300,000 per location. This project is managed by ADOT since this is federal funds. It is an extremely expensive project. Recently, we developed an innovative, never used before architecture for flashing yellow arrow, and staff installed the flashing yellow arrow at 2 locations. Guess what? Instead of paying $300,000, we completed a location less than $12,000. To improve pedestrian safety at the intersection, introduce a new system called leading pedestrian interval. What it does, it gives a head start to the pedestrian, so once the conflicting traffic moves, the pedestrian in the clear line of sight of the approaching driver. And I would also mention, we also did a test pilot program for a system which we call adaptive pedestrian control system. It's an artificial intelligence-based program. It tracks the movement of the pedestrian at the crossing, and extend or shorten the time necessary depending upon the walking speed of the pedestrian. And we also deployed Dilemma Zone on the Glendale Avenue. Dilemma Zone is a system where the driver gets confused when the signals start changing from red to yellow, whether I can get through the intersection or I don't get through the intersection. This system detects that kind of a behavior and stop the conflicting traffic for a certain period of time so that the driver can get through the intersection safely. A highly safety, wherever it has been installed, we have seen at least 30 to 50% reduction in the rear end crashes. We upgraded the traffic management center. We installed the new software for the adaptive traffic control, and we also moved away from the traditional big box servers. So now we have a virtual servers, which makes our traffic control center mobile. Wherever our traffic engineer goes, the traffic control center goes with them. It's highly useful for managing the special events, emergency events, and the big mega events in the city. Glendale Airport received Airport of the Year award from FAA, and is also classified from municipal to the regional airport now. No, our airport is not a municipal airport. It has been classified already by FAA to the regional airport. This slide covers transportation accomplishments related to airport projects, streets and right-of-way, repair and maintenance, and safety initiatives. Completed the restoration of South Apron at the airport at a cost of $4 million in federal grants. Completed airport east side development study. In financial year 22, council approved the funding for this study. Approximately 120 acres are available on the east side of the airport for potential aeronautical and non-aeronautical development. The study completed a market analysis and recommended a possible roadmap for future development. Before finalizing the study, we are planning to bring this study to the council in the next few months. And also completed the critical repairs of the two bridges. To improve safety of all roadway users, secured $1 million in federal grants and initiated a Vision Zero and safety action plans. Vision Zero takes a safety-first approach and acknowledges that traffic deaths and serious injuries are preventable, and brings together a diverse set of stakeholders to address the complex problem of safety. Safety action plan will identify hotspots throughout the city, will identify the countermeasures, and develop projects for near-term, mid-term, and long-term deployments. And will also develop a toolbox of countermeasures for the staff to use in future. The last slide includes accomplishment related to complete street infrastructure improvements and safety education programs. We secured $4.4 million in federal grants and started design of Maryland and Missouri Avenues active transportation projects, which is basically bike and pedestrian improvements throughout the corridor. And also secured $5 million in federal grants and started construction of 67th Avenue bike lane project. Council set aside $8 million for Scallop Street. Staff started design of 10 projects, which covers approximately 4 miles of Scallop Street in the city. Last but not the least, the department completed 15,000 service requests on the 50,000 service requests. On the average, a service request takes about 4 hours of a staff time. With this, I'll hand over to Mr. Adabala to go over our supplements.
Thank you, Shahid. Mayor and Council, we have two slides. We have two slides that list the supplemental budget request for transportation. The first slide identifies general fund and highway user revenue fund categories. So the first one under general fund is the right-of-way landscape maintenance plan. As Shahid mentioned earlier, we thank council for approving a 7-year plan, the additional $4 million. We are approaching the end of the first year of the plan. We are on target to complete the plan in 7 years. This supplemental budget request is for the second year of keep up of the landscape that we'll be installing in the second year. It's approximately $68,000. For barricade services for events, major events, we are requesting an additional $107,000. This accommodates the new contract that we have, and the cost of the barricade services has gone up. And we are also hosting more large events, so this will address both of those needs. The next one is the parking lot preservation. This is to do parking lot maintenance on the yellow lot, Lot G, and Lot H. These parking lots have not been resurfaced in over 10 years, so this is going to bring the parking lots into good condition. Under Highway User Revenue Fund, we have traffic signal electricity cost increase, and you'll see another 2 supplementals also related to electricity cost increase. APS and SRP have notified us that next year our utility rates are going to go up. So this supplemental is for the electricity use related to traffic signals, and that's approximately $24,000. Street lighting also is going to see a cost increase in electrical cost, and the supplemental of approximately $225,000 is related to that. The third one is traffic signal maintenance. We are going to install 3 new Hawks in the coming months in Glendale, and this is related to maintenance of those 3 additional Hawks that we are installing. The signs and markings line supplies for approximately $4,000 is to pay for the cost increase in material for markings, roadway markings. On this slide, I'll speak for the transportation sales tax and the airport special revenue supplementals. The first one here is the Regional Americans with Disabilities Act service, or ADA service as we call it. It's for trips that either originate or end outside of Glendale. That is provided by a contractor with Valley Metro. So under agreement, our cost with Valley Metro is projected to increase by $266,000. The fixed route service that we also provide in agreement with Phoenix is projected to increase by $531,000, and that supplemental is for that service. Shahid talked about Alive at 25, and that 9 high schools, all of them in Glendale, that makes it 100% in Glendale, are going to be part of the program next year. Right now we are in 8 high schools. And when we started this fiscal year, we were in 3 high schools. So this $10,000 will help us make up for the additional high schools that we need to provide material for that training. Signs and markings, sign replacement material. Earlier I talked about the pavement marking material cost increase. This $5,000 is for the sign replacement cost increase for the material. The last one under sales tax there is the intelligent transportation systems electricity cost increase. So we have message signs in and around Glendale, and the electricity cost related to those dynamic message signs is going to go up by approximately 3,000 because of the APS and SRP rate increases. And the last one is the airport special revenue. We acquired AeroSimple software. It helps manage leases and other payments that airport receives from customers. And this software actually improves the customer experience at the airport. This 20,000 is an ongoing maintenance cost for that software that was purchased. And that brings us to the end of the presentation. We'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mayor. I have quite a few questions, so you'll have to bear with me. First thing I wanted to ask about was Scallop Street. Where in your budget is the line item for Scallop Street?
So Mayor and the council, this budget was in FY '23 and '24, so that's a carryover budget. So you'll not see in FY.
Mayor, or Vice Mayor, members of the council, that's a CIP item. It's not in the operating budget.
Okay. Refresh my memory. Do we have Ms. Rios money in the CIP to continue the Scallop Street program? I know we did 4 miles last year.
Mayor, members of the council, out of my memory, yes, I believe, as Mr. Abbas said, we have some carryover of unused funds and some additional funds being added. We can certainly point those out next time on the 16th when we have the
I would appreciate
CIP
it, yeah.
back in front of us, but that is my recollection that
Okay,
there is
thank you.
funding.
Now, moving on to questions I have with regard to the budget book. On page 313, this is a curious question. There's no money, this is Division General Government Transport. There's no money for salaries as a line item, nothing. So how can there be benefits, overtime, retirement benefits for a little over 5,000 if there's no salary? I'm curious, how does that work?
So this budget, Mayor and Council, is for the stadium and arena event management. So we do not have staff that is budgeted here, but they do charge their time that they've worked on the.
So this is for previous, okay. Page 319, signs and markings. You have professional services of $150,000, so it's been reduced by 500. What professional services do signs and markings need? What is it used for?
Mayor and Council, it's used for various things, installation of signs, pavement markings. Some of the work is done in-house and some of it is contracted out. So that represents work that's contracted out.
Okay. Not sure I understand, but okay. Same thing on page 323. Dial-A-Ride. Professional services of over $1 million. It's $1,120,514. What professional services?
Mayor and Council, this is the regional ADA service that we talked about earlier in the supplementals. So, and this is where the cost increase is what we requested
Okay.
in supplemental.
That's understandable. And then on page 326, under traffic mitigation, your budget request is for $645,526. What does traffic mitigation consist of? And is this enough money to do traffic mitigation? I would think that would be very important, so tell me what traffic mitigation does.
So Mayor and the council, the traffic mitigation is basically a safety program which we deploy in-house. It consists of the speed cushions, speed feedback signs, and other traffic improvements which we do locally at the intersection and along the corridors. Adding of lane markings, refreshing of the lane markings, adding of new signs where they are warranted.
So is this enough, really? 645,000 to do all that?
Mayor and the council, I think we have sufficient money to complete all our tasks which we have in a year, so.
Okay. And then lastly, page 327, transportation. The division is called GO, which I assume means government obligation, CIP operations, and it's $1.4 million. Can you explain the function of this department? What does it do?
Mayor and council, this basically captures a lot of the maintenance activity that's done. It's landscape maintenance, paying for the irrigation water and supplies to maintain that landscaping.
Okay.
Mayor, members of the council, that GO there doesn't stand for general obligation.
Say again, I'm sorry.
That GO in that context is not general obligation, it's the GO tax.
It's the GO tax.
It's the GO tax,
Okay.
not general obligation.
It stands for
Alright.
Glendale On Board.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm on page 323, you've got, do you have the paratransit program and the dial-a-ride program blended together on that page? So can you break out what the total, including the additional 266,000, what our costs are going to be? They must be up around 2 million for paratransit then, at least that's what being forecast.
Mayor and council, just to make sure, we're talking about page 323?
I'm sorry?
You asked for page 323?
323, well, I'm trying to understand because you've got dial-a-ride and apparently ADA paratransit blended into one page here.
Right.
So what is the anticipated, the forecast costs for the regional ADA service, including the $266 million you're requesting? I'm just trying to find that number and I don't know how to find it on this page.
Mayor and council, there's a, if you look at the previous page, 322, you will see the professional services goes up by 796,591. There was a error in there that the supplemental for dial-a-ride, which is on the next page, was actually combined in that number. So that should have only gone up by 500 on page 322, and it should have gone up by 200 plus $1,000 that we asked for dial-a-ride on page 323.
So, Mayor, if I could, so the other $530,000, what is that for?
That is
That
for the
increase
fixed route,
for?
the Phoenix contract, also a supplemental that we identified.
And that's for just a fixed route?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you have all of the costs under fixed route, even though paratransit's not fixed route?
That is correct, and I believe we'll work with finance and get that corrected, so it will show in the right place.
Okay.
And it's done.
So is there a way to break out that number of what how you got to that $5.5 million that you're requesting for fixed route, including the paratransit? Do you have, and if you don't have it today, that's okay, if you could bring it when we reconvene April, whatever that day is. What's the number for being forecast for our paratransit trips? I would like to know what that, I think, with an additional 266,000, I'm thinking we're right around $2 million.
So Mayor and the council, the paratransit ride forecast which we received from Valley Metro, about $1.7 million. But we'll bring the complete details once we have the budget workshop.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, I'm sorry.
I said
1.7.
1.7 million is the estimate which we received from Valley Metro on the paratransit.
And so this 260, that's about the same as it was last year, isn't it?
I believe it was 1.5 million last year.
Okay. All right. I had another question. I can't find it, but I know that you asked for a supplement for it, the right-of-way landscape maintenance plan. You asked for an additional 68,000, but what is the total amount that we're investing in the right-of-way landscape maintenance plan this budget cycle? I wasn't able to figure out where it was in here.
So Mayor and the council, the total 7 years landscape maintenance plan, the total budget for this plan for 35 miles is $7.5 million. We have 3.5 million already existing on a budget, so council gave us an additional $4 million for over seven-year periods. The supplement which see here is the landscape which we are going to complete. We are 6 to 8 miles, we have to maintain it. So that supplements help us to maintain that additional right of scape which comes into our inventory.
Okay, thank you for that, Shahid, but I'm wondering, how much do we have allocated? How much funding do we have allocated for this next fiscal year for this program?
Mayor and council, you have allocated approximately just under $1 million. That's in the CIP. And there's approximately $550,000 in the operating budget under the right-of-way budget.
So we should be able to be seeing some progress. Very good. I have one other question on, I have to find the page, 320, sorry, I got away from the microphone. On page 324, under salaries for transit program administration, I saw some switching of 7 people to a different classification, but I didn't see any, they were leads and they're still leads, but I see a increase in budget and cost for salaries of 14.29%. I didn't see any new FTEs, and that's more than the amount of what even a high-performing employee increase would be. So I just wondering if you could explain what the difference there is for the transit. It's on page 24, the first line, salaries.
Mayor and the council, we reclassified most of our position in transit because we are having a very difficult time to hire. We still have 5 vacancies available here, so we increased their salaries. I think that's a reflection of.
Okay, because they went from something lead to something else lead, but it was just a higher grade or something so the jobs just pay more.
Mayor and the council, some of the grade change, but most of them is the driver which just bump up the salary,
Okay. Okay, that's what I was trying to find, is they went from transit operator lead to transit representative lead, or I guess it's the other way around, transit representative lead to transit operator lead, right?
Yeah, Mayor and the council.
And the FTEs. Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure I understood it. Thank you.
I do have one follow-up question, which the Councilmember Tomachoff reminded me of. In your slide 105, where you talk about landscaping, landscape restoration program, completion of 6.8 miles of improvements per fiscal year. Did I hear you correctly when you said it would take 10 years to complete this program?
Mayor and the council, the program is 7 years program, so every year we intend to complete 6 to 8 miles of restoration because we have 35 miles of right-of-way landscape which we need to restore over 7-year period.
I needed clarification. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and the council.
Next, we have Randy Huggins with Development Services.
Yeah.
I have to adjust my script a little. Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm delighted to be here today. My experience in returning back to Development Services after 7 years in Econ Dev has been phenomenal. Thank you, Mr. Phelps and Mr. Mehta. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity. Here with me today was going to be George and Pavla, Deputy Directors. I have Tabitha in the audience. George is at a field visit now, but he will be here at 2 if anything comes up that he can answer. We're in a very unusual time. Over the next 24 months, Development Services will be going through the most change it's ever gone through in such a short period. First, we moved to the Bede Museum. It's a great location. We sincerely appreciate Michelle, Darren, and Eddie. The space has turned out great. The public has received it very well. But it is a new location. Second, with the approval of the UDC earlier this year, we're going through a significant training of our staff and the public on this new system. Not only are we doing that, but at the same time, we have projects that started under the old system. So those folks are going to finish out in that system. So we have two parallel systems currently running. The third change is the shift to the Clarity permit, plan review, design review, service request, case management, inspection software system. All of our business practices are going to change, and we're going to move it all online. Currently at this time, we accept plans, but we don't have a digital system. We don't have an online system. We're still using the system we used 20 years ago. Just we've now allowed people to send us emails, and we take those emails, we convert them manually into different systems, and the process is very cumbersome. Fourth, later this year, we'll begin the RFP for a major general plan change. The general plan update is going to be significant because the current general plan is based on what we were doing years ago, and it's been updated, but it hasn't really changed. That's why you've seen so many, in a report that Tabitha had provided earlier this year, you've seen so many general plan updates because we're using a plan that is not what the city is today. And fifth, in early 25, we're going to switch to the new international building codes. The new series is going to be a significant change from what we have now. There'll be things like new water use standards or water-wise standards. We're happy to have those because they'll support the city's water department and our drought readiness plan. So in short, our physical location, our cyber location, our business practices, our payment practices, our codes, our ordinances, all of them are changing within about 2 years. So I assure you, we have an amazing team. We're up for the challenge. I just want to set the precedent early that throughout this presentation, you'll see some shifts in some of our metrics, and that's because we're going through so much change. We take hiring of permanent staff very seriously. Last fiscal year, we converted 2 temporary staff to full-time positions. This year, we're not requesting new FTEs. We intend to continue using on-call services and building safety to help balance the workload of some highly specialized projects along the 303 and the Sports Entertainment District, probably for the next year or maybe 2. Based on guidance from council in previous budget years, the council budget committee recommendations, and input from citizens, we have restructured a few positions to better accommodate the needs of the community. First, we reclassified an FTE to a small business coordinator. Most large or mega projects have teams of attorneys, architects, engineers, franchise agreements, extensive funding, and consultants that guide them through the entire process. As you know, our small businesses generally don't have these types of resources and can be experts in their fields but have no idea how city processes work, city licensing, building codes, or zoning. Even with checklists, websites, and other things explaining, they often become frustrated and lost in terminology. After an extensive recruiting and interview process, we promoted Lucia Peralt Soda to Small Business Coordinator. She's a current employee with the Development Services Center, is an ICC certified plan technician, and has 19 years of experience in helping customers at all levels through the regulatory process. She also received multiple nominations for success factors from her peers this year. In just the first month, she's made contact with more than 100 businesses, met with small businesses, went on site visits, and started coordinating with economic development. We have received positive feedback from businesses and from other departments that we have heard from going through different processes. This position is new, and the specific duties are still developing. But from what we've seen so far, we're very impressed with early progress. The second reclassification created an abatement project or program manager. This person deals with citizens going through some of the toughest times they'll experience in their lifetimes. The aftermath of a house fire, a vehicle crash into a building, a major mechanical or electrical failure, and closing of businesses is devastating. Getting people back in business and their lives back to normal is very important. Many times there are extenuating circumstances, including Glendale Police Department cases, fire marshal issues, illegal building modifications, and code compliance cases that add complexity to bringing people's properties back in service. The abatement program manager works to coordinate city efforts with a common goal. We've received very positive feedback from multiple departments, including 4 success factor nominations for Scott's abatement collaboration efforts from various departments. Currently, we have 53 FTEs in building safety, or in development services. Which way do I aim this? All right. Our budget is people-centric, with most of it dedicated to our staffing needs. You received a detailed budget report for development services this year as part of our deep dive. It provided additional details such as training seminars, continuing education for certified staff, uniforms, software, equipment, office supplies, and personal protective equipment for our inspectors. Some performance measures. The service request numbers shown have steadily increased and do not include all of the requests in Glendale 1. These are specific planning requests, which are generally more in-depth and require research on specific properties. The service request is a great tool to verify we are communicating effectively and to track workloads. With the transition to Clarity software, all of the planning service requests currently in Glendale 1 and currently submitted directly to planning will be incorporated together. For this reason, we expect this number to increase in our target in FY25. We expect the number of cases filed, including zoning, variance, conditional use permits, and similar, to level off around 500 or 550. As the city moves to infill, adaptive reuse, and redevelopment, the types of cases submitted will likely change. You'll see annexations decrease, and once the new general plan is approved, the number of general plan amendments will decrease as well. And the third one is the number of planning customer visits and phone calls seems high. Last year we hit 13,000. And we're expecting to end this fiscal year at over 23,000. We expect it to continue to increase based on all the department changes we're going through. We received an update from IT at the end of February showing planning staff alone has exceeded 16,000 phone calls for the year. I guess I gotta change it. Our number of permits and reviews are fairly level across a couple of years and is expected to continue at this level. The third line, which is the number of plans reviewed electronically, will likely come off our metric next year. Even if on a rare occasion someone brings in a hand drawing, we'll scan it in for them and send it in for electronic review. The next 3 metrics relate to the approving of plans on the first, second, or third review, and these numbers continue to improve and level off. We are generally on the front end of moving at the speed of business and continue to modify our processes to find new ways to help projects open on time or ahead of schedule. Many of you know there are a number of House and Senate bills aimed at taking community development governance away from local municipalities. This year, our team has spent significant time reading, editing, researching, and providing feedback on dozens of very detrimental bills. Special thank you to Ryan Lee and Haley Berry for keeping us in the loop and for advocating for our community at the legislature. They are seriously doing a really good job. Over the past few years, the city has grown to 67.54 square miles. Through voluntary annexations we're tracking, we expect the city could grow to 69 or 70 square miles, possibly in the next 10 years. Demand for land, buildings, and unique development is strong. The diversity of our market is unlike most cities our size. We consistently receive requests from other cities' development services and economic development departments asking how we're seeing so much success in so many industries. The answer is short: we treat people well. And they share their experience with others, which makes them our best marketing tool that we can have. Some notable projects include Rainbow Riders, a hot air balloon company in the tourism category, Dick's House of Sports bringing their flagship building and experiential retail, Nestle's massive new state-of-the-art manufacturing facility, Phoenix Children's Hospital campus. The medical office building is already open, and the hospital Phoenix Children's Hospital will be open soon. And Manistee Ranch Townhomes. Many of you know the project was taken offline for a year with financial issues. It was very frustrating to the neighbors, but now it's back into construction and moving forward. When someone asks how many houses are being built in Glendale, the answer depends on what you mean by being built. The slide will help explain that. There are about 3,757 single-family homes in some part of the process. As of February, we have issued 813 single-family permits and will likely exceed 1,000 single-family home permits this year, which is more than double last year. In the previous fiscal year, FY23, there were 441 single-family homes permitted. There is no lack of approved lots. There are 3,378 lots that have already been approved in design review and approved in plan review and are ready to build, pending the developers submitting an application when they're ready. Similarly, as of February, we had 6,309 multifamily dwelling units in some form of the process, with 1,417 being permitted so far in FY24. Multifamily complexes are often built in phases, and we expect most of the 6,309 units to be completed in the next few years. Industrial gets talked about quite a bit, so I figured we'd do a little more detail on that one. We have 33 million square feet of industrial in some form of construction or recently completed, mostly along the Loop 303. There's 5 million in review, 11 million in construction, 2.26 on hold, though we've met with developers and their tenants recently, and it looks like we're going to have another 400,000 or 500,000 come off of hold and go back into construction. We have 7.6 million that received C of Os in 2023 and 7.3 million that were completed between 2019 and 2022. We're seeing less new ground-up industrial mega buildings, but we're seeing a consistent flow of tenant improvements as these tenants continue to add business units and grow their lines at their buildings. So how are we doing this? The answer is simple. It's innovative customer service. Pre-meetings, pre-application meetings, pre-construction meetings, pre-certificate of occupancy meetings. When we look at the folks who are involved in the process, we know that they're all different. For example, developers, site selectors, brokers, executives, architects, engineers, contractors, prospects, and tenants all have very different needs and skill sets. We understand and cater to all of them. If you lose one of those groups, you could lose the project. When we succeed, all of them become our marketing and sales force, reaching people in markets we would never have access to. We spent the last 4 years developing the UDC. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm moved on to supplementals. We spent the last 4 years developing the UDC, and when council approved it, we knew we'd be coming back with text amendment to work through a few items and to make improvements as we find edits needed after using the UDC for a few months. The $30,000 is to retain Michael Baker International, the consultants that drafted the UDC, to assist with multi-item text amendments in the next fiscal year. The second supplemental is for an increase to professional and contractual services or third-party review and inspection services. The service includes 2 specialized inspectors that work some of our largest and most complex projects along the Loop 303 and on the Via Resort. We expect to need these services for the next year or two as these projects are completed. The third supplemental item was a request by council earlier this year and would be the funding source for a continuation of the Historic Preservation Plaque Program. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I have just one. On page 171 in the budget book, your third item down is property cleanup expense, and that's abatement and demolition, usually after a fire or something catastrophic happens to a home. And you've budgeted $38,000. That does not seem like enough to accommodate this situation. Do you feel that this is adequate? What does it generally average out to do one demolition?
Mayor, Councilmember Clark, currently we rarely use that money. There's other programs that are being used through housing or through insurance. So we use that as an emergency fund when there's a project where we have no other option but need a way to actually remove a property that's either a danger, it's been sitting for too long, the owner is unable to board it up, or make it safe. So it's not necessarily 100% demo, it's more make safe.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, compliments for all your accomplishments this year. One of the things that I had talked about last year, and I'll continue to talk about, and want to get a little bit more information on, is how we are really helping the small individual contractors and the small business. I know in your accomplishment list you hired a new business coordinator, and I'm sure that's working well, and I hope it continues to improve. But I just want to make kind of get a little bit more discussion on how we're helping the very, very small projects, even the home projects, where you know, you have an individual that doesn't have any experience in architecture or any of these things. They want to do a small adjustment to their location. How are we addressing those small requests and getting them speed to market the same we do our large customers?
Mayor, Councilmember Malar. So from the early portion of that is, am I even allowed to do what I want to do on my property? Can I build a patio? Can I build onto the, say, east or west side of my property that's gonna, do I meet the setbacks? So the first thing we try and do, rather than have a bunch of phone calls going back and forth, we try and get them into a service request immediately. The service request gets a planner from the Planning and Zoning Department assigned to them, and they respond within, we try to do 24 hours, but it's usually closer to 48 hours, to at least make connection with them to clarify exactly what they're looking for. Once they do that, that planner will reach back out to them, research their property, look at their plat, look at their zoning, and give them all the information needed so now that homeowner understands what their opportunity is with the city. Sometimes they have an idea they want to build a big mega garage or something because they have room on the side of their property, not realizing that setbacks are an issue. The next phase that we like to do is actually have them come into the Development Services Center where they can actually sit down, we have a meeting space, and meet with someone who can walk them through the process. As I was describing earlier, you can give people checklists, you can tell them to check the website, but there's nothing better than having them come sit down and draw next to them and make sure they understand exactly what we're talking about.
If I may, Mayor, thank you very much for that explanation. The other area of concern that small businesses have brought to me in the past is as we're going through the planning process and we ask them to do something and they do that, and then they come back with their plan saying, oh, we've done what you said, and you say, oh, here's something else that you need to also do. And then they go back and do that, and then and again, sometimes it happens several times. What are we doing to eliminate that from happening?
Mayor, Councilmember Malar, that's another good point of why we have the service request process. What has happened in the past is someone comes in, especially if they meet or make a phone call, they get some information, they do what they got on that phone call, and they say, okay, I did what I was told. Or they are given two options. Option one has 3 things you need to do, option 2 has 2 things you need to do, and they do one thing from option 1 and one thing from option 2, and they come back and they find out, well, I thought I did what I was told. So that's why we assign a person to each process now. If it's a really basic question, like, can I put up a for sale sign in my yard? They'll just answer the question. But other than that, if it's really going to take any research, we want to get them assigned to someone, and then we can actually work through how we're doing. One of the things we started this year, and it's based on the balanced scorecard, is we have a survey that we're sending out to everyone who finishes any kind of a process in planning. And it's probably a little long because we're still learning how to do this. But it asks a lot of questions that just say, how was your initial discussion with your project manager? What kind of a process did you go through? The information provided to you, how was it provided to you? Was it understandable? But we're really trying to dig into how do we make our process better so that the questions that you're asking now that we're addressing.
All right, thank you very much.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Last up is Ron Serio with Water Services.
Okay, so he's the only one holding everybody up for lunch. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor and Council. Today I'm going to be presenting the Water Services operating budget. Okay, we are requesting $80.3 million for next year's operating budget. The Water Services Department, our goal is to provide our services in a professional manner with a culture of customer service. We're split up in 4 areas as shown on the slide. Almost half of our budget is for operations. I'd like to just go over a few of our performance measures. The first one is a customer service performance measure. And we do have a lot of 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week staff, but our water distribution, our wastewater collection, our stormwater group is a Monday through Friday, 5-day-a-week operation. So if there are emergencies after hours or on weekends, like a sewer overflow, a water main break, we have a goal to get our staff out there from the time we receive a phone call till we have boots on the ground at the site, less than 2 hours, and we're doing a good job of meeting that goal. We're tracking at 98% of the time meeting that goal. Next, we have a couple of financial stability health performance measures, and this is something we work with budget and finance very closely to maintain these. The first one is debt service coverage, and we're meeting this goal. The second one is maintaining a fund balance that's not less than half of our operating budget. This is important because it helps us maintain a good bond rating, and this morning, as Amy mentioned, we did get an upgrade from Fitch on our bond rating, and this minimizes the cost of debt service when we have to borrow money to finance projects. And then finally, for performance measures, we have some operational performance measures. This first one is meeting an industry standard for sanitary sewer overflows. The industry standard is to have less than 1 overflow per 100 miles of sewer pipe that you have in your city. We far exceed that, and this is not an easy task. It's a heavy lift, and it's a reflection of our staff cleaning our sewer system. And to accomplish that, it takes 3 years to get the sewer clean. So when they're done, they have to start over and do it all over again. So they do a great job on this, and the bottom line is it keeps the sewer in the pipe and not on the street. The next item is an internal goal for meeting regulatory and safety requirements. And I'd like to explain, this helps us achieve regulatory compliance, meeting regulatory compliance 100% of the time. And one example is, say we get a permit for a facility that expires in 5 years. Instead of depending on people to remember that, we'll set up tasks in our asset management system. So a year ahead of time, it'll identify, hey, this permit's due in a year and these tasks need to be accomplished. So sometimes we may not get the task done completely on time, but 100% of the time we get our permit renewal in and completed on time. So that's really important to us. And I would like to highlight 3 of our accomplishments. The first one is some equipment that we upgraded at the West Area Water Reclamation Facility. We disinfect the water there with ultraviolet light. The old system was 25 years old. We were experiencing a lot of failures. It wasn't able to completely disinfect the water, so we had to supplement bleach in the process to achieve disinfection. The new system has been in place about 2 months, and it's working very well. We expect over the next year to see some electrical savings because it's more efficient, and we also don't expect to use bleach to supplement bleach, so we'll see a little bit in chemical savings. The next item I think is a big one. Last calendar year, which is the water year, we conserved 7,000 acre-feet of water, Colorado River water, and 7,000 acre-feet for us is almost a third of our annual allocation of Colorado River water. The way we achieved this is last winter there were pretty good snowpack and and rain events that occurred in Arizona, which basically filled up the Salt River reservoirs to the point they had to release water. The released water flowed through the Salt River, through the valley, and was unused. So the benefit of that is when there is water being released down the river, we are able to take that additional water at no additional charge, and it's not restricted. Normally, Salt River water is restricted to be used on SRP member lands. And in this case, there was no restriction. So we took additional water that was free, we treated it, and we pushed it into northern Glendale, where we normally serve Colorado River water. So ultimately, this resulted in us saving 7,000 acre feet. The other thing that happened last year is council entered into an agreement with the Bureau of Reclamation so that we would get paid $400 an acre foot for every acre foot of water that we conserved in the Colorado River system. So we received a check for $2.8 million for this effort. And a lot of the credit goes to our staff that moved the water around, our control room staff. They did a great job with that. And then finally, we received $450,000 grant from the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority. And we're utilizing this to offset some of our costs for the Water Conservation Rebate Program. And onto our supplementals. Just overall, what we're asking for this year is the basic things that we need just to continue providing our core business functions. We're not asking for any additional services or any additional staff. The first item is government fees, and these are fees for the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. They have increased their fees for facility permits and also for operator certifications. So this is just to cover that increase from the state. The next item is chemical cost, and this is something we've seen for several years now. The majority of this is inflationary adjustments for the chemicals that we use on a regular basis. And a part of it is for increased treatment at the Pyramid Peak Water Treatment Plant because our partner, Peoria, has asked to use more of the expansion that they paid for. So we're adding some additional funding for them. And of course, they pay their fair share of the operation of that plant. Electricity, again, these are rate increases that are being projected by SRP and APS for electrical utility costs. The next item is equipment maintenance, and this is to cover materials and equipment that we purchase for our in-house maintenance staff. Our in-house maintenance staff performs a lot of the day-to-day maintenance for us, and the costs of the materials that they need have gone up over the past couple of years. The next item is professional and contractual services. These are to cover items that we don't do in-house, so we'll hire a contractor or a service provider to perform other maintenance and other services for us, and we're seeing rises in those costs as well. The biggest item that we have is raw water costs, and this is the combined total for both SRP increases and CAP, or Central Arizona Project increases, and it's 1.4 million. And then finally, on the water side, we have building maintenance increase. This is a number provided to us by facilities, and they're projecting what they need to continue maintaining all of the water facilities that we have in our department. Onto the sewer supplementals. All of these, except for one item, is in the same category that we just discussed on the water side, and for the same reason. So I'm not going to repeat those unless you have a specific question. But the one difference is the 91st Avenue Wastewater Treatment Plant. That is our partnership plant. We're one of 5 partners in that plant, and Phoenix operates it. This amount represents a 9% increase, and this almost matches us in terms of our sewer fund, that's exactly about what we're seeing in our sewer fund in terms of our increase for next year. So we think it's a reasonable rate. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mayor. As long as you mentioned raw water costs and an increase of 1.4 million, is that all attributable to a cost increase of water, or does that include the city using more water?
These increases, Mayor, Councilmember Clark, these increases are not for additional water. It's rate increases that we're seeing from
Okay.
SRP and CAP.
Are we increasing our water usage on an annual basis?
Mayor, Councilmember Clark, the water uses, it goes up very, very slightly. We project maybe a 1% increase
Okay.
from year to year. It's very low. And I think there's new growth, but it's offset by conservation. And weather plays a big role in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, in the budget book on page 261, Division Public Service Representative, looks like that's eliminated. What did this public service representative do, and why is it being eliminated?
Mayor, Councilmember Clark, those positions weren't eliminated. What we did is we made their title different to match more appropriately with what
So
they did.
you just
So they were
retitled it.
moved into another division.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then on page 273, meter maintenance is also eliminated. Now, I know we're replacing meters, but in the meantime, we've all got meters, and what if it fails and you have no meter maintenance budgeted at all for the existing meters? So explain to me how that's going to work.
Mayor, Councilmember Clark, I'm not sure why it's shown that way in a budget book, but we are not eliminating our meter readers, or we're not doing anything different. What we are doing a little bit different with the consideration of automated metering infrastructure is we're replacing meters that fail or need to be replaced,
Right,
but
with
not
the new stuff.
proactively. Yeah,
Yeah.
with new. We're not going out and replacing a meter that met its end of life. If it's still working fine, we're not going to spend money and then replace it in the next year or two. So our services are continuing as they have.
All right, so can you find out where it went? I would
Yes.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then page 274, Oasis Water Treatment Plant. There's a professional services increase of 250% from 20,000 to 70,000. What's going on there?
Mayor, Councilmember Clark, this is a situation where we have risk assessments that are due to make sure that our chemicals are being handled appropriately. So we have to develop every so many years a risk assessment plan. So we bring in a contractor, a service that helps us develop those plans. So that's the majority of what that service is.
Okay. And then lastly, page 282, irrigation. It looks like you're discontinuing unless it's moved someplace else. It's all zeroed out. What's happening with irrigation on page 282? I mean, don't we still have an irrigation program for downtown, or we have a certain amount of customers that we're responsible for their irrigation service, so why is there nothing there for it?
Mayor, members of the council, the column that says FY25 request has 304,000 and 10,000 in that. The next column with the zeros is just a change. So because there's no change, That column is showing zeros, but the other column is the request. So there is a request there. It still has a budget of 314,000.
Do we have a water master? Or is this all done by a contract now?
Mayor, Councilmember Clark, we have that contracted out. So there's two contractors. One makes repairs, and the other one provides the irrigation
Turns
services.
water on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Those were all the questions I had.
Hello, Mr. Serio, thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to compliment you and your department. I worked pretty closely with you as the city's representative on the Arizona Municipal Water Users Association, and the support and advice I get from you and your staff is always top-notch and helps me do a better job for us in that role. But I also appreciate the innovation that you're working with, saving us $2.8 million by being able to take an opportunity of having Salt River project water on the rare occasions we can push it off project, and capitalizing on that is great. And you're a big picture thinker. You look at everything from the national and the regional and the state, and clear down to every drop of water in Glendale, and your conservation staff is top notch. I think it was just this year that you took over from Craig Johnson as director, and so far as I can tell, it's been a seamless transition, and the continued great performance of your department I look forward to in the future as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions,
Mayor,
yes.
we'll wrap it up for you.
Okay.
So that concludes our operating budget presentations for today. On April 16th, we'll bring back the CIP and the operating under another budget workshop, bring those two elements together and present the total budget to the council on that April 16th workshop. And then voting meetings will follow for tentative and final budget adoption, as well as property tax adoption.
Okay, no other questions? We're adjourned. Have a great day.
Have anything for me, Brett?